Chapter 2654. Everyone was stunned. In such a huge battlefield, apart from the whistling of the wind, there was no sound at all. Everyone was scared stiff. Just when everyone thought that they could not stop the silver-haired young man from devouring the Emperor's opportunity, Yi Shiwen's move shocked the entire battlefield. Had it really been completely destroyed? Roar! A deafening roar could be heard from the silver-haired young man. His head grew out again, looking extremely bizarre. However, what everyone was concerned about wasn't this. They were more concerned about whether the opportunity to become a monarch had truly been destroyed. At this time, the geniuses and the old antiques adjusted their mood quickly, almost immediately changing their minds. Since they could not obtain it, then they would destroy it. It would be better for anyone to obtain it than the Celestials. If the Celestials obtained it, it would mean that all the realms would be enslaved. Whoosh! The silver-haired young man did not intend to answer at all. He directly turned into a stream of light and flew into the distance. Kill, we can't let him escape. If we let him obtain the way in the future, will there still be a way for our races and sects to survive? At this time, while everyone was still in a daze, Ji Renwang roared and slashed out with his sword, killing a powerful 12 celestial generals of the celestial race. At this time, everyone reacted as if they were enlightened. Although they belonged to different races and did not have a common cause, only when facing the celestial race could they unite against a common enemy. If other races had emperors, it would only make that race stronger for a long time. Since ancient times, this was the law. But if the celestial race gained power, it was possible that the seal would be opened and the celestial race that had been exiled to a distant space would be welcomed back. That would be a disaster. Kill! We can't let that guy escape. Fight! These geniuses and the old antiques all roared and attacked. For a moment, the experts of the celestial race were in a mess. The geniuses and the old antiques who could be said to be allies suddenly turned against each other. And after thinking of the terrible consequences of the celestial race gaining power, they all went crazy. They must not give them a chance. Boom! 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 Under the attacks of these crazy geniuses and old antiques, the experts of the celestial race fought and retreated. Powerful experts at the peak of the Sage Realm died one after another. Yi Shiwen and Ji Renwang were leading the charge. The two of them were like a human-shaped road roller, killing all the heavenly race experts in their way. They were simply unable to withstand a single blow from these two people. But how could the celestial race not know what was happening? This was related to the possibility of their race returning to the heavens in the future. How could they give up so easily? Thus, they risked their lives to snipe them. Even Ji Renwang was blocked. Apart from Yi Shihua, who used the 10,000 spell roulette to protect himself and the Avicii sword to open a path, the others were blocked by the Celestials. Even if they had to pay a huge price, they had to stop these people. Yi Shiwen, I'll leave him to you. Don't let him escape. Ji Renwang shouted. Yi Shiwen did not look back and directly chased after him. The demon wings on his back spread open and his whole body turned into a stream of light, chasing like lightning. Both sides had reached their maximum speed. Yi Shiwen could only faintly see his opponent's back. This silver-haired youth's technique was brilliant, definitely not inferior to the demon wings. But Yi Shiwen was not surprised. Although the demon wings was a martial art of the demon king level, there were many emperor-level experts in the celestial race. Even his ruler's swordsmanship was learned from the celestial race. Although Yi Shiwen was getting closer little by little, if he continued to chase like this, he would only be able to catch up if he chased out of the Kurfürst road. He had been stopped just now and it had really wasted too much time. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen felt a burst of violent fluctuations in the void. Then, a terrifying power poured in from the outside and soared into the sky. The void was actually torn apart by a force, turning into an incomparably huge door. A portal! Yi Shiwen's pupils slightly shrank. The celestial race was obviously more prepared than he had imagined. To be able to project power from the outside and form this portal, who knew how much resources they had used to achieve this? Seeing that the silver-haired youth was about to escape into the portal, Yi Shiwen took a deep breath, and the Avicii sword in his hand sensed Yi Shiwen's intention. It rose sharply against the wind, and instantly grew into a huge sword that was millions of miles long. And on the other side of the huge sword, Yi Shiwen was as small as an ant. "This is the last attack, Dai!" Yi Shiwen roared, his face flushed red. His whole body's martial power was instantly sucked out and poured into the Avicii sword. Rumble! The huge sword slowly fell down, like a huge curtain of the sky crushing down. The silver-haired youth was simply frightened when he saw this, and quickly sped up to escape inside. Poochie! The sword light pierced right through his body, and a small part of his body was cut off. Ah! Yi Shiwen! The silver-haired youth was in so much pain that he was going crazy. His perfect body had never been injured before, and now it was injured twice by the same person. He was going crazy. However, in the nick of time, he still dodged slightly and avoided the most fatal point. He did not explode from head to toe. At this time, he could not care about finding the other half of his body. He directly fell into the portal. Boom! The entire portal was completely destroyed by this sword. If he had been a little bit slower, he would not have been able to escape. Huff huff! Yi Shiwen kept panting, but his face was extremely ugly. I actually let him escape. At this time, Ji Renwang and the others had finally caught up. Just now, they had all seen this scene from afar. Yi Shiwen's sword had made them tremble in fear. It was almost comparable to a king-ranked martial artist's power, but in the end, the silver-haired youth still managed to escape. Everyone's face was gloomy. Everyone could imagine how big of an uproar it would cause if this matter was spread out. The opportunity to become a martial emperor was actually obtained by the heavenly race. The consequences were simply unimaginable. Yi Shiwen, why didn't you stop him? Someone looked at Yi Shiwen agitatedly, as if Yi Shiwen deliberately let the silver-haired youth of the heavenly race go. Yi Shiwen glanced at him coldly and was too lazy to say anything at all. If not for these people wholeheartedly trying to stop him, things would not have turned out like this. He just kept circulating the Phoenix regeneration technique to recover his spirit power. That sword just now could be said to be the strongest in his life. The spirit power consumed was not much, but the life force that was burned could not be recovered in such a short period of time. In order to stop the silver-haired youth from escaping, he had already tried his best. However, he was still one step too late. He only injured the silver-haired youth, but was unable to kill him. Yi Shiwen, are you colluding with the heavenly race? I heard that you have the 10,000 method roulette, but the heavenly race actually didn't take it back? Many people looked at Yi Shiwen excitedly as if they wanted him to come out and take responsibility for this. However, there were also some people like Six-Eared Macaque, Golden-Winged Rock, and the others. After all, they were still outstanding people, and could not do such a shameless thing. They also saw that sword just now. It was almost as if Yi Shiwen had done his best. If it was them, they would not have been able to do better. Was this really the will of the heavens? If it wasn't for your stupidity being blinded by greed, how could this happen? You still have the face to ask me now? Yi Shiwen had almost recovered and said with a sneer. Facing these people's accusations, he said without giving them any face. As for whether I have the 10,000 method roulette or not, it's none of your business. If you have the ability, come and fight me again. Before Yi Shiwen's voice fell, his aura was like a landslide, sweeping out like a tsunami, rolling up thousands of layers of space waves. Many people had thought that they shouldn't have. They wanted to take advantage of the time when Yi Shiwen had exhausted his martial power to harm him. But now that they saw that Yi Shiwen had recovered so much in such a short time, they didn't dare to say anything. The matter of Yi Shiwen killing the monstrous genius and the old antique was still fresh in their minds. They would not forget it so quickly. Under Yi Shiwen's cold gaze, these people dispersed one after another. At this time, the opportunity to become an emperor had already been taken away. How could they have the mood to continue staying? They all flew out of the Kurfürst Road to inform their own people of this important news. In the end, he still escaped. The only one who stayed, Ji Renwang, had a somewhat unwilling look on his face. Only he knew how long they had prepared for this moment. They even prepared their trump cards, but in the end, they still could not destroy the opportunity to become an emperor. Is it really the will of the heavens? You also did your best. Yi Shiwen could not help but sigh. It could be said that he and Ji Renwang had already done their best, but he still managed to escape. He also had nothing to say. But fortunately you injured him twice. I can be sure that the opportunity to become an emperor is no longer complete. If he wants to thoroughly comprehend it, I'm afraid it will take many years. We still have time, Ji Renwang said with a slightly gratified tone. Fortunately, the opportunity to become an emperor was not complete. Otherwise, it would not be long before the emperor of the celestial race would be born. At that time, it would be a disaster. There's still time to completely exterminate the remnants of the Tian clan. These past few years, the various great powers have been on guard against each other, which is why these remnants have had the environment to grow. Now, I'm afraid they don't have any thoughts of guarding against us. But this time, I've dragged you into this mess. Your troubles have just begun. But I won't just stand by and watch. After all, you're doing this to help me. Chapter 2655. A huge uproar. The news that came out of the Kurfürst Road caused a huge uproar in the myriad heavens. Like a stormy sea, it spread everywhere at the fastest speed possible. The opportunity to become an emperor had actually appeared when the Kurfürst Road opened this time. Compared to the opportunity to become an emperor being obtained by others, what was even more shocking was that the Tian clan had indeed participated in the competition for the opportunity to become an emperor, and they had actually succeeded. A stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The fear that many people had towards the Tian clan deep in their hearts also exploded in an instant. When they thought of the terrifying race that could fight against the myriad heavens with the power of a single race, no one could accept it calmly. In the end, they all knew that the silver-haired young man had directly teleported away. If he had directly rushed out of the Kurfürst Road, then he definitely would not have been able to leave. One had to know that there were always some kings who could not enter the vicinity. Although they could not enter, it did not prevent them from waiting here to intercept him. Since ancient times, it was not that there had not been any successful cases. No matter how strong those monstrous geniuses and geniuses were, when faced with the surprise attack of these kings, they would still be killed in an instant. The Tian clan had obviously thought of this, and simply let him teleport away in the Kurfürst Road. For this reason, who knew how many resources and foundations had been used? When this news spread, for a moment, the myriad heavens and the myriad heavens were shaken, and all the major forces immediately took action. In the face of the possibility of the return of the Tian clan, no one dared to underestimate it. Even in the past, when the myriad heavens and the myriad heavens were at their peak, when there were many experts of the imperial monarch level in their positions, they still fought until the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. It was incomparably difficult, not to mention the current situation where there was not a single imperial monarch. If the Tian clan were to return, it would simply be a disaster. At this time, the martial sect, who had long been prepared, stood up and called for the major forces to once again form an allied army. With the inheritances of those existences that had produced imperial monarch-level existences as the core, with the king sect as the backbone, and with the many other immortal inheritances, they formed an allied army to annihilate the remnants of the Tian clan. This was no longer the time to be scheming against each other. Before the Tian clan absorbed the opportunity to become a martial emperor, they had to exterminate them all. Since they couldn't obtain the opportunity to become a martial emperor, they would destroy the silver-haired youth's body. Perhaps it was because the martial sect itself had a strong rallying power, or perhaps it was because of the fear that the 10,000 realms had towards the Tian clan, but the call of the allied forces quickly received a response, especially the ancient Phoenix realm. Previously, they had been heavily injured by the remnants of the Tian clan, and even the patriarch, the Phoenix King, was forced to die in battle. Besides the ancient Phoenix world, almost every race in the universe had a blood feud with the celestial race. Every race had elders who had died tragically at the hands of the celestial race. Perhaps the younger generation didn't feel this deeply, but those old fogies in power had never forgotten this for even a moment. In addition to the previous 2 battles against the heavens, the Allied forces quickly entered the stage of discussion. Many of the old fogies of the major forces who had hidden for many years came out one after another, and went to the martial sect of the Heaven Realm to discuss how to annihilate the remnants of the Tian clan, so as to avoid causing greater turmoil. It could be said to be the matter that attracted the most attention at the moment. In addition to this matter, there was another matter that also affected the hearts of countless people, and that was the matter of Yi Shiwen beheading dozens of evildoers and old fogies. Together with the matter of the opportunity to become a martial emperor, it also spread throughout the universe. When the news first came out, many people didn't believe it because it sounded as ridiculous as it could be. It wasn't strange for Yi Shiwen to behead any peerless evildoer. It wasn't unprecedented in the past. When Ji Renwang entered the Kurfürst Road for the first time, he had once defeated an evildoer. However, Yi Shiwen didn't just kill one, but dozens of evildoers and old fogies. Everyone was going crazy because they knew too well what these people represented. Although the King Realm was the highest combat power at present, these people usually only cultivated in seclusion. They didn't care about anything at all. Basically, it was these old fogies or evildoers who were in charge. It was like the Hidden Valley's Lord of Flames had fallen one day. It would definitely be a huge shock to the Hidden Valley. It might not be a big deal if only one of them had fallen. The Kurfürst Road was extremely dangerous. Even the evildoers couldn't completely guarantee that they could protect themselves. However, dozens of such existences had fallen in one go. Moreover, they had all died in Yi Shiwen's hands. How could this news not cause an uproar? That was especially true of the deathless legacies that had lost their elite disciples and pillars. They were on the verge of going crazy. The king-ordained sects were better off, as they had only lost a single successor. But to the ordinary deathless legacies, their old-timers were like the founding patriarchs of their sects, their pillars of support, their spiritual support. Now that they had all fallen, it was like a catastrophe for the deathless legacies. Many enemies also took advantage of this opportunity to come knocking on their doors. It was the first time that Yi Shiwen had truly caught everyone's attention. However, this time, he was no longer an extremely outstanding existence among the younger generation. Instead, he was known by everyone as a giant who could influence the heavens and realms. Yi Shiwen's strength was unimaginable. At the same time, many people were even more afraid of his ruthlessness. Even a king-ranked martial artist would not dare to kill so many powerful martial artists and old antiques at the same time, much less severely injure a similar number of powerful martial artists and old antiques. The anger of these hundreds of forces was enough to completely drown a King Realm master. However, Yi Shiwen had dared to do so. Being powerful was not the most terrifying thing. After all, there were King Realm masters who were even more powerful than him. However, what really made them not dare to look directly at him was his audacity. He was simply lawless. Although some people thought that the situation at that time was so tense that they had no choice but to act, it was also to prevent the opportunity to become a martial emperor from falling into the hands of the heaven race. If it were anyone else, they would not have been able to do so. However, for the forces that had lost their evildoers and old fogies, How could they accept such an explanation? No matter how righteous they were, there was no way they could accept such a thing. Most of them thought that these people had been blinded by the opportunity to become a martial emperor and that their deaths were not to be regretted. In the end, the opportunity to become a martial emperor had fallen into the hands of the heaven race. Even if they were to come back to life, they would not be able to escape death. However, these forces still did not let it go. They even went to the Hidden Valley. Although the Hidden Valley was powerful and had a few king-ranked martial artists, they were still in a terrible fix. Not only did they find many ordinary immortal inheritances, but they also found the demonic eagle race, which was considered a royal race among the demonic beasts in the demonic domain. While everyone in the Hidden Valley was shocked by Yi Shiwen's terrifying combat power, they could not help but smile bitterly. This Yi Shiwen was too good at causing trouble. He had killed dozens of evildoers and old fogies in one go. Not to mention hearing about such a thing, they did not even dare to think that such a thing could happen. However, this young master had actually done it. Compared to this earth-shattering event, killing Jun Dingtian was nothing. How could Jun Dingtian be compared to those evildoers who had been famous for many years? Thinking about it, it was obvious that it was impossible. This was a shocking and ruthless person. Many people realized that the Hidden Valley was probably going to have an amazing king. Compared to him, the Lord of Flames, who had been the most amazing in the past, seemed to have lost his brilliance. Not only the Lord of Flames, but almost everyone's brilliance had been overshadowed by him. Even Ji Renwang, who had once amazed an entire generation, seemed to have lost his brilliance. At the very least, with his strength, it was impossible for him to kill evildoers of the same level. Even when surrounded by so many people, he still managed to kill dozens of them and severely injure dozens of them. More than half of them were defeated by him. Some people predicted that once he truly became a king, it would be the beginning of an even greater era. If there was someone in this generation who had the opportunity to achieve Tao, there was no doubt that he would be one of the most important candidates. Without Jun Dingtian, it was even more impossible for the Hidden Valley to give up on Yi Shiwen. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen had shown amazing potential. Even in the face of the questioning and pressure from nearly 10 sects and a group of immortal inheritances, the Hidden Valley did not relent and face them head-on. Fortunately, they still had one last trump card, which was that reason was on their side. These people insisted on stopping Yi Shiwen, and in the end, they died tragically. They even caused the celestial race to obtain the opportunity to become emperor. Their deaths were not to be regretted at all. Seeing that a war was about to break out between both sides, and it was very likely that it would break out into a divine war that would last for tens of thousands of years, the support that Ji Renwang had promised to give to Yi Shiwen finally arrived. At this moment, the martial sect stood up and supported Yi Shiwen. After all, Ji Renwang was the protagonist of another matter. It was him who wanted to destroy the opportunity to become emperor, and in the end, it led to a huge conflict. Experts from all sides suffered heavy casualties. It could be said that he was the fuse of this incident. It was just that the martial sect was extremely powerful, and no one dared to find trouble with the martial sect. However, the Hidden Valley seemed to be a soft persimmon that was easier to bully. This was also one of the reasons why the Hidden Valley held back their anger and refused to give in. They were simply too much of a bully. Moreover, the Hidden Valley was a veteran sect, so it was impossible for them to give in when they were clearly in the right. If it was only the Hidden Valley, it would not be enough to make the various forces give in. However, with the addition of the martial sect, it was completely different. This terrifying inheritance that had once produced an emperor was still one of the most powerful behemoths in the world. They could ignore the Hidden Valley, but they could not ignore the martial sect. Moreover, the martial sect now held the greater cause. When the remnants of the celestial race were about to rise again, doing so would be equivalent to internal strife, and they would be attacked by all the major forces. Under such circumstances, the demon eagle race and the other behemoths finally gave up on forcing the hidden valley unwillingly. At this time, Yi Shiwen, who had caused such an uproar, was in seclusion in the depths of the blood prison. He was making the final breakthrough to the late stage of the Sage Realm. Chapter 2656. In the depths of the blood prison, above a pool of blood, Yi Shiwen's figure floated up and down. This was the most essential place in the depths of the blood prison. The blood qi there was dense, and it could instantly replenish a large amount of energy. Generally speaking, only a few king-ranked great ancestors in the Hidden Valley, the Lord of Flames, and a few other extremely important figures could cultivate in a place like this. Ordinary sage plane cultivators were not qualified at all. The blood qi condensed into blood dragons and surged into Yi Shiwen's body, replenishing the energy he had used to break through. It was almost endless. Cultivating in seclusion here was many times more efficient than cultivating outside, and it could save a lot of time. Yi Shiwen had already used a king-ranked elixir to break through once. Although he had failed in the end, it had given him a better understanding of the king-ranked realm and allowed him to control more power. He had even surpassed the limits of power that geniuses could have. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill so many geniuses and old antiques on his own. In this battle, he completely let go and did not hold back at all. While he was carefree, it also allowed him to completely control this power. Now, he was going to completely transform this power and comprehension, completely breaking through to the late stage of the Sage Plane in one go, and his battle prowess breaking into the king-ranked realm. Around him, many laws manifested. They were all laws and great paths that he had comprehended, and it was as if a world was being rebuilt around him. At the same time, he was even more conflicted because he knew very well that the world of chaos that Yi Wudi had mentioned before was really coming. In this world of chaos, even king-ranked plane cultivators might not be able to protect themselves, let alone sage plane cultivators. He had to break through to king-ranked plane in the shortest time possible so that he could protect himself. All the laws manifested, and all the great paths gathered. Yi Shiwen was in such an environment, comprehending in a frenzy. In his body, the mysterious space continued to revolve, transforming more information about the great paths for him to comprehend. Countless blood dragons surged into his body like rivers, replenishing the mysterious space's energy consumption. The speed was getting faster and faster, and he was also deeply immersed in this comprehension, almost as if he was about to lose himself. This was an extreme method of comprehending the Tao. He was practically immersed in the great Tao and was swimming within it. This method of comprehending the Tao was extremely dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he might completely transform into the Tao. He would become one with the great Tao and lose himself. His physical body would transform into a rainbow. However, that enlightening mind ancient tree in his body was constantly blooming with dazzling rays of light, stabilizing his mind so that he wouldn't lose himself in the great Tao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to enter this extreme state of enlightenment. But the effect of doing so was also very obvious, and that was that his cultivation was growing rapidly. The magical power in his body was circulating in circles, attacking again and again, breaking through the barrier of the late stage of the Sage Plane. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Time passed day by day, and he was getting closer and closer to this limit. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen, who had been motionless for decades, finally let out a long and loud shout. His body moved. At the same time, a group of rays of light transformed into all kinds of strange phenomena in the sky. A wave of medicinal fragrance spread out. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth, and the group of rays of light couldn't escape. He swallowed it whole. The light dissipated, and it turned out to be an elixir. It seemed to have developed its own consciousness, and it wanted to escape. This kind of elixir was already considered a spiritual item of the world. If it could escape, it might even be able to cultivate a great magic in the future. By then, it would be even more tyrannical than ordinary top masters. Unfortunately, how could Yi Shiwen let it escape? He immediately bit it and turned it into a torrent of energy, pouring into his body. Suddenly, the originally very stubborn barrier weakened a lot. Yi Shiwen calmed his mind and continued to attack the powerful barrier of the late stage of the Sage Plane. And at this moment, flowers of blood began to fall from the sky, blooming in the sky one by one. Those who didn't know would have thought that this was originally a phenomenon in the blood prison. Almost in an instant, Yi Shiwen, who was in the midst of a breakthrough, was startled. Something's wrong. Yi Shiwen was startled because he immediately felt that something was wrong. This wasn't an inherent scene in the blood prison. On the contrary, these blooming blood flowers triggered his memories. He thought of something, and couldn't help but change his complexion. But at this time, he had reached the most critical moment, and he couldn't move at all. He could only watch as the flowers of blood fell. Suddenly, these flowers of blood bloomed, and daggers appeared on them. They were full of murderous intent, and the terrifying murderous intent exploded in an instant. It was as if he had entered a battlefield of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. These flowers of blood fell from the sky, and they were getting faster and faster. The speed was so fast that it turned into a cold light, and directly approached Yi Shiwen. Swish! Above Yi Shiwen's head, a blood light flew out. It was the Tianyuan mirror that had sensed something at the critical moment, and directly made a move. The blood light turned into a torrent, sweeping everything, and collided with the flowers of blood in the sky. A huge roar made the whole world shake violently. "Who dares to be presumptuous in my hidden valley?" Yi Shiwen forced out a wisp of his spirit and shouted. At the same time, his divine senses were released frantically and covered the entire blood pool. However, he couldn't find any trace of the enemy. He didn't feel happy that he couldn't find the enemy. On the contrary, he suddenly became nervous. With his current martial power, it could be said that although he hadn't broken through yet, he was already infinitely close to the King Realm. However, he couldn't even sense the enemy. Assassin! There was an assassin! Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary assassin, but the king of assassins. An ordinary god of death would be courting death if they dared to approach him. With his current martial power, he could kill a god of death with just a glance. Only the legendary king of assassins could approach him so silently, and even his divine senses couldn't sense it. There were 3,000 great Daos, and each of them could be proven. Among them, the Killing Dao was undoubtedly one of the most famous great Daos. Many gods of death were world-shaking, but it was undoubtedly rare to cultivate to the level of the king of assassins. Besides the hidden devil clan in the devil domain, there were only a few forces that had the king of assassins in charge. Blood flowers falling from the sky. This was the symbol of the Blood Kill Gang. The Blood Kill Gang was an extremely terrifying name in the myriad domains. Countless experts had died in the hands of the Blood Kill Gang. Since ancient times, there had been many powerful demons who had died in the hands of the Blood Kill Gang. There was even a period of time when it caused public outrage. Many factions joined forces to encircle and annihilate the Blood Kill Gang. However, in the end, they did not succeed. Although the Blood Kill Gang had suffered great losses in that battle, the various factions had also lost several king-ranked experts. At one point, they had charged into the Blood Kill Gang's headquarters, but in the end, they had been defeated by the Killing Array. Since then, very few people had mentioned the matter of encircling and annihilating the Blood Kill Gang. The gains did not make up for the losses. Moreover, the illustrious reputation of the Blood Kill Gang was also established. From then on, it could be compared to the Hidden Devil Clan and become one of the 4 major assassin organizations. There were countless experts in the assassin organization. It was said that not only was there a king of assassins in charge, but there was also more than one king realm expert. It was not inferior to the ordinary king realm expert. One could imagine how big the reputation of the Blood Kill Gang was. Under normal circumstances, the Hidden Valley was not willing to offend such a colossus. It wasn't that they couldn't deal with it, but the losses did not make up for the gains. Let's not talk about how many losses they would suffer. Even if some of them managed to escape, they would be attacked again today and again tomorrow. Who could stand it? However, now that the people of the Blood Kill Gang had come to bully them, it was a different matter. In just a moment, he immediately thought of many things. He had deduced the identity of the person who had come. At the same time, he was also incomparably shocked in his heart. This was because he had never expected that there would be a king of assassins coming to kill him. There was no need to say more about how powerful the king of assassins was. He could kill powerful king realm experts. If one was targeted by the king of assassins, almost no one could calm down. However, the price of the king of assassins was also very high. It was not something that an ordinary person could afford. Although he seemed to be famous in the world, as long as one was not a king realm expert, it would rarely alarm the king of assassins to make a move. This was because there was no need. It was no different from making a mountain out of a molehill. It was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. However, he was not surprised now. With the things he had done recently, it was unknown how many people were secretly looking forward to his death. Although it seemed that they had been forced to retreat by the martial sect, they were actually operating in the dark. Yi Shiwen did not expect those people to give up. It was precisely because of this that he had to increase his cultivation. At that time, no matter what tricks the other party had, he would be able to protect himself. I didn't expect it to be a senior of the Blood Kill Gang. I wonder which senior of the Blood Kill Gang is facing me? Yi Shiwen casually used his divine thoughts to send out his voice. On the other hand, he was frantically searching with his divine thoughts. He wanted to find this figure. This kind of battle where he could not even find the opponent was really too depressing. This was also the reason why many people were not willing to offend the god of assassins. It was because these people's fighting methods were too strange. They would not fight head-on at all. At the same time, he did not stop cultivating. He was stalling for time. As long as he broke through, he would not be afraid of anyone. Jia, interesting. You, a junior, are quite scheming. Unfortunately, you will die today. Someone has paid a high price to take your life. I don't want to go against the Hidden Valley, but this reward is too tempting. A phantom appeared in front of Yi Shiwen and sneered. Jia, this is interesting. However, his voice hadn't yet faded when a cold light suddenly appeared behind him. The virtual shadow in front of him was actually just a bait. Chapter 2657. Even the deliberate appearance just now was not to show off, but to attract Yi Shiwen's attention. It was simply a bait. The terror of the king of assassins was evident from this. In order to kill the target, it could be said that he would do anything. A cold sword light flashed and a figure tore through the void. Fast, it was too fast. It was so fast that no one could react. The figure fused with the sword light. Fast, it was too fast, so fast that no one could react. The sword was pointed straight at Yi Shiwen's head. There was no way to avoid it. Everything happened so suddenly and quickly. The speed was too fast. All the rules and defenses collapsed in an instant. Between heaven and earth, only the rules of the way of killing were left. There was no way to avoid it. This was a fatal attack. That was because no one expected that they would be assassinated in the Blood Prison. This could be said to be the headquarters of the Hidden Valley. No one expected that these assassin kings would be so brazen, so arrogant and despotic. They appeared out of nowhere without the slightest bit of precaution. It was a shocking attack. A king of assassins personally dealing with a sage-playing cultivator. There was no reason for him to fail. No one knew how he appeared. He killed with a single blow. It was sharp and ruthless. This was the way of assassins. It was all about killing with a single blow. If this was the case, the spirit would basically be destroyed. There was absolutely no reason for him to survive. Roar. A loud roar rang out. The illusory sky divine python was like a huge dragon roaring as it charged out. The sky shook violently as blood dragons danced in the air. However, although his strength was not bad, with the strength of a sage plain cultivator, and he was only one step away from becoming a king, it seemed that he was still a bit lacking when facing the sneak attack of a king of assassins. The light of his sword could be said to be blooming with the traces of the Great Path. It was even an incarnation of the Great Path. Bang! With a loud roar, the sword cut the illusory sky python in half. It screamed and fell back into the Tianyuan mirror, escaping back into the illusory sky divine sand. And Yi Shiwen finally took advantage of this little bit of time to display his devil wings and escape this fatal blow. In front of him was an old man who looked to be in his 70s or 80s. He looked as if he could be blown away by a gust of wind. He was bony, and the only thing special about him was that his right hand that was holding the sword was extremely thick and crystal clear. It didn't look like a human hand, but rather a crystal cast. Even with Yi Shiwen's current state of mind, he still felt somewhat apprehensive. Just a moment ago, he had been on the brink of life and death and had come back from the gates of hell. This kind of feeling was enough to send a chill down his spine. So it's Senior Jing Wang who has graced us with his presence. I'm sorry to have offended you, Yi Shiwen said faintly, but his mind was completely open. In the Blood Massacre gang, this Jing Wang was considered as a relatively inexperienced king of assassins. But no matter how inexperienced he was still a genuine king of assassins. It was said that this Jing Wang had lived for more than 10 million years. This was a very shocking number for a king of assassins, because the killing Tao was different from other martial arts. It was completely derived from killing and assassination. These gods of assassins often needed to constantly assassinate powerhouses in order to further their cultivation. Especially assassinating powerhouses that were stronger than themselves. Only then would they be able to comprehend the strong killing Tao and thus advance further. But how could those top masters be assassinated so easily? Just like the current Yi Shiwen, any god of assassins who dared to cause trouble for him would be courting death. With just a glance, they could behead him thousands of times. Originally, this seemed like a joke. If a glance could kill, but with Yi Shiwen's cultivation, this was no longer a joke. Instead, it was a genuine magical power. With just a thought, the world would change and the rules would change accordingly. Using the rules to kill people was just a matter of minutes. This was the power of the gods, the incarnation of the great Tao. Their words were not a joke. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen was now an outstanding figure among the gods. Because of this, although the Tao of Assassins was famous, there were very few who could become the king of assassins after living for more than 10 million years. How many assassinations had he experienced in between and still survived? This in itself represented that this Jing Wang was very terrifying. Jie, I didn't expect that you would still recognize me. You were able to dodge my attack at this age. It's really amazing. No wonder they paid such a huge price to kill you. But it's a pity that today, this genius will die in my hands. Jing Wang's figure slowly disappeared into the void. Yi Shiwen clenched his fist. In this situation, although he didn't know how the opposite party had broken in, this battle was inevitable. If it was someone else, they would have been scared to death at this time. A king of assassins wanted to deal with a person. Even if the opponent was an evildoer, it would still be a dead end. However, Yi Shiwen didn't think so. If it was another king-level expert who wanted to confront him head-on, then it could only be said to be a dead end. However, the opposite party was a king of assassins. Although he was terrifying, it was precisely because he was a king of assassins that he had a chance. Yi Shiwen didn't know how many experts of the Tao of assassins he had killed over the years. They all had one thing in common. In addition to the Tao of assassins, They lacked the ability to attack head-on. Compared to the same level king-level experts, their ability to fight head-on was much weaker. Of course, the premise was that they could capture their movements that couldn't be captured at all. If the difference in cultivation was not much, it might be possible. However, in the current situation where his cultivation and strength were completely at a disadvantage, it would be very crazy to imagine all this. However, at this time, he had no other choice. If he didn't fight, he might die here. He had to delay and wait for the others to support him. After all, this was the core area of the Hidden Valley. Once an invasion happened, they should be able to react very quickly. If the Hidden Valley was so easily broken into, it wouldn't be worthy of being an old king-level sect. He closed his eyes and suddenly opened them. His eyes had been replaced by the eyes of redemption. All the fluctuations in the space were seen in his eyes. His mind had also been stabilized to the extreme. At the same time, the mysterious space in his body was still constantly operating, trying to analyze the Jing King's movements. However, what was even crazier was that the breakthrough to the late stage of the Sage Realm had not stopped. Although breaking through in such an intense environment was simply courting death, he had no other choice. Fortunately, the most crucial part had passed. The remaining part was still dangerous, but it wasn't impossible. Whoosh! A sword light flashed across the sky almost in an instant. No one could clearly see where it had come from. It seemed as if the entire sky was filled with sword lights. However, Yi Shiwen knew that only one of them was real. The way of an assassin was all about killing with a single blow. The others were nothing but baits and shadows. That's all. This was the most terrifying because it was impossible to see clearly what was real and what was fake. Bang! In an instant, the space around Yi Shiwen shattered. Thousands of sword lights pierced into his body. Thousands of sword lights passed through his body and pierced into the fuzzy space. It was at this critical moment that the eyes of redemption played a role. Yi Shiwen seemed to be still in the same place, but in fact, he had already moved thousands of spaces away. Blood splashed, and the sky was full of blood. Yi Shiwen didn't seem to have been stabbed, but blood suddenly splashed out from the side of his body. He had moved thousands of spaces away at the critical moment. However, he had still been grazed by that sword light. Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form had been sliced apart by that sword light. One could well imagine the dreadfulness of the way of assassination and the dreadfulness of this one-hit killing technique. In the blink of an eye, with a seemingly ordinary sword, the two sides had already exchanged blows. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Yi Shiwen's sword pierced through the sky. Stone Chi froze everything and it shot backward. At the moment when he was hit by the sword, he finally realized the real source of the sword light. His face was indifferent, as if he wasn't the one who was hit by the sword. His indifference made people feel a little scared. The void in that area was torn and frozen by the stone chi. A figure jumped out. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen's judgment was right. It was indeed so. However, Yi Shiwen's sword had only forced him to reveal his position. Not bad, kid. You actually used a method of injuring yourself to determine my position. But next time, you won't be so lucky. The Crystal King said with a grin, but his face instantly changed. Yi Shiwen's real killing move was yet to come. Whoosh! A blood-red sword light instantly rushed out, and directly slashed towards the Crystal King who had been forced to reveal his position. This was the Avicii sword. This was the place where the Avicii sword was born, and it was his home field. With the help of this endless blood energy, Yi Shiwen didn't have to worry about the problem of spiritual power exhaustion, and he could display his full power. Rumble! This was the reason why he had the confidence to fight against the Killer King. Although the 10,000 law roulette's power was not small, with his current strength, he couldn't display its full power. It was enough to threaten the king level. After all, it was a top king level magic tool. Only the Avicii sword was different. Its murderous aura was oppressive. Even if Yi Shiwen didn't use it, its power was still astonishing, even above the 10,000 law roulette. A blood-red sword light crossed the vast sky, directly piercing through everything and pierced towards him. Whoosh! The Crystal King moved thousands of feet away, barely dodging the attack of the blood-red sword light. Cold sweat appeared on the Crystal King's face. He was almost pierced by the sword. What was that ominous sword? It could actually threaten a king-level expert. Don't look down on me. Even I don't know how terrifying this sword will be when it is displayed to the extreme, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Chapter 26:58. Yi Shiwen held the Avicii sword in his hand. The spiritual power in his body was recovering rapidly. Streams of blood qi flowed into his body like a dragon. Especially since he had the heart of the blood realm in his body, the speed of blood qi absorption was more than 10 times that of ordinary people. This provided him with almost unlimited energy. In other words, this was his home ground. This was the most fundamental reason why he could fight with the Jing King. Even though the gap between him and the Crystal King was still so large that it couldn't be further increased, but in some aspects it had been leveled. His body couldn't withstand a single strike from the Crystal King, and similarly, the Crystal King couldn't withstand a single strike from the sword of Avicii. At this time, when the Jing King looked at Yi Shiwen again, there was no longer the contempt in his eyes. On the contrary, there was a bit of seriousness in his eyes. That ominous sword had made him feel somewhat startled. However, that was all. A king-ranked expert could look up to Yi Shiwen because of the Avicii sword in his hand. Otherwise, how could Yi Shiwen be mentioned in the same breath as him? "Brat, you are really arrogant," the King of Assassins said coldly. "Do you really think I cannot kill you? You should feel honored that I will personally send you on your way." Boom! In an instant, the entire blood prison seemed to shake as if it was about to split open. Many mountains in the distance were rumbling and shaking, and the ground was torn apart. The Jing King was too oppressive. His entire body turned into a murderous hell. He changed the laws and environment of the blood prison into a murderous hell that was suitable for him. This was the true skill of a king-ranked expert. With Yi Shiwen's strength, it was easy to destroy a world. However, it was impossible to create a world. That was the skill of a king-ranked expert. Therefore, for a king-ranked expert, there was no such thing as a suitable battlefield. Even if it was not suitable, it could be turned into a suitable battlefield. This was the scariest part about them. In fact, many dangerous places in the 10,000 domains were created by these king-ranked martial artists. In the process of releasing the murderous hell, the blood pool under the blood prison began to boil. There was a violent fluctuation. Many big arrays were suddenly awakened. They were stimulated by the murderous hell and were resisting the erosion of it. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "Don't you King of Assassins like to assassinate others to prove yourself? Today, I will kill a King of Assassins to prove myself." Golden dermic powers surged from his body as his aura shot up into the heavens. He did not back down just because his opponent was a king-ranked realm martial artist. Yi Shiwen stood above the blood prison. However, it seemed as if he was in hell. Countless stone tablets of the path of slaughter appeared around his body. These stone tablets were solemn and serene. The most important thing was that each of these stone tablets recorded a person's name. These names had once shaken an entire region. These were the opponents that the Crystal King had beheaded. The names on the stone steels were written in blood, as if they were crying. It was a heart-wrenching sight. It was extremely terrifying. Who knew how many lives had been sacrificed to form this killing path hell? Yi Shiwen felt a dreadful suppression under these steels. Each steel was releasing a dreadful coercion. Moreover, they were arranged in a combination of killing arrays. The resulting power was so great that it seemed as if he was going to be sacrificed alive. "This is my blood-death prison. You should be honored to be killed by my blood-death prison. From now on, your name will become one of these stone tablets. You will become my future glory and a stepping stone to prove my Tao through killing." As he spoke, those stone steels started to tremble violently. Figures appeared on them one after another, their auras soaring into the sky. Every figure was different, but they were all equally stunning. Looking from afar, one could see that their spiritual chi was soaring into the sky. However, at this moment, their eyes were lifeless, and what was left was only endless resentment. They used to be invincible geniuses who shone brightly. However, they were killed in the end. This resentment would not disappear even after thousands of years. Now, it had become the support of the Crystal King's killing path. Boom! This resentment directly turned into a monstrous sea. Law talismans instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. It was like a raging wave hitting the shore, shattering everything. These endless resentment spirits rushed towards Yi Shiwen. They were incomparably terrifying. Every one of these resentment spirits had extraordinary killing technique. They were not inferior to the ones they had when they were still alive. Facing these incoming resentment spirits, Yi Shiwen remained motionless like a reef in the sea. No matter how the raging waves hit him, he remained unmoved. All kinds of terrifying attacks bombarded him. The 10,000 spell roulette flew out above his head. Thousands of spells spouted out. No matter what kind of enemy it was, they could not escape. There were spells that could restrain them. The terror of the 10,000 spell roulette was finally revealed. This was also the reason why the 10,000 spell king was called one of the strongest kings. King-ranked experts were invincible existences. To be able to move unhindered among king-ranked experts, there was no need to mention how terrifying the 10,000 spell roulette was. Just this 10,000 spell roulette, which seemed to be able to restrain all the great Daos in the world, was already incomparably shocking. At this moment, the 10,000 spell roulette restrained all the attacks of the resentment spirits and blocked them. The spells that erupted from the 10,000 spell roulette shattered all the resentment spirit. This was an amazing scene. This was the true power of the 10,000 spell roulette. If it was not for the environment of the blood prison, even Yi Shiwen would not be able to use it. The amount of spiritual power required was simply as vast as the mountains and the seas. Boom! The Jing King's attack instantly landed. The sword in his hand opened a huge portal. It was the portal to hell, and it enveloped Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen waved the Avicii sword in his hand and rushed forward. Boom! The shocking collision caused Yi Shiwen to retreat again and again. Yi Shiwen's blood surged crazily. In the collision, he suffered a loss. Although the Jing King was only the king of assassins, his strength was clearly above the current Yi Shiwen. You're very good. For a divine lord, your cultivation is already heaven-defying. However, it's a pity that the gap in strength cannot be overcome. The Jing King's voice kept coming. He wanted to attack Yi Shiwen's confidence, and make him lose the confidence to continue fighting. However, Yi Shiwen was not moved at all. He just kept looking for the Jing King's position, and wanted to give him a fatal blow. However, in this murderous Tao hell, the Crystal King's speed seemed to have increased to the extreme. His figure could appear on every stone tablet. Unless the entire murderous Tao hell was destroyed, it would be impossible to track him. Yi Shiwen realized that he had underestimated the Jing King. Which king didn't have amazing trump cards? In the entire blood prison, there was a blazing light. Many stone tablets were swept by the Avicii sword and exploded. The battle between the two was extremely fierce. On the surface, it seemed that Yi Shiwen was being attacked everywhere. He was completely at a disadvantage and was constantly being attacked. However, his attacks were always a step late. Every time, he couldn't hit the Jing King. Even the entire blood prison was alarmed. Many gods woke up from their slumber. Battles might occur in other places, but in the blood prison, unless the enemy had invaded to this extent, Yi Shiwen's divine kingdom was completely unfolded. Yi Shiwen's divine kingdom was completely unfolded. It would be smashed to pieces in an instant, but it would condense again. In this way, it was constantly being smashed and condensed again. Yi Shiwen's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. He could already somewhat grasp the Jing King's movements. The mysterious space in his body was crazily analyzing the Jing King's various movements. He could even somewhat predict the Jing King's movements. You still don't want to use your trump card? You won't have the chance if you wait any longer, Yi Shiwen said coldly. At this time, there were wounds all over his body. He looked like a bloody man. During the confrontation with the Jing King, he was also repeatedly injured. However, at this time, he didn't care and didn't hesitate to use his full strength. You don't need to worry about this. Anyway, you will die in my hands, said the Jing King coldly. However, he didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness. The continuous battles had also made him understand Yi Shiwen's tenacity and fearsomeness. He no longer had the confidence to casually kill Yi Shiwen. Unexpectedly, it made him feel the same as when he faced other titled king powerhouses. He had to be extremely careful and look for an opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen in one strike, because one carelessness might cause him to lose his life. Although the revenge of killing Yi Shiwen was very tempting, one must be alive to enjoy it no matter how tempting it was. Suddenly, a huge crystal bowl appeared in his hand. There was a terrible power fluctuating in this bowl. It seemed as if it contained something terrible. Suddenly, this bowl turned over and turned into a monstrous sea. It directly overturned. The space was crushed under the pressure of this sparkling and translucent liquid. It seemed as if it couldn't bear its weight. It shattered one after another. It seemed as if what was overturning wasn't the sea, but the mountains. It was the entire world. It was incomparably spectacular. Die. The Jing King's face revealed a somewhat sinister expression. This is the heavy water extracted from the heavy water. It is the essence of the essence. Even the gods can't bear such a weight. Die for me. The heavy water itself was one of the heaviest substances in the world, and the heavy water extracted from it was the heaviest substance in the world. It was even more terrible than the stars when it was overturned. Yi Shiwen's complexion finally changed. He suddenly swung the Avicii sword in his hand to chop the heavy water. Rumble! The Avicii sword swept across and the heavy water directly evaporated. However, the heavy water that was overturned was too much. It was too terrifying. Yi Shiwen's sword had no way to completely eliminate the heavy water. Boom! All the heavy water smashed onto Yi Shiwen's body. It was as if countless stars had fallen at the same time. Yi Shiwen's body burst open. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. Even the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The opportunity has finally come. The Jing King's figure flashed and instantly appeared. He slashed towards Yi Shiwen, who had been smashed by the heavy water. Puchi! A sword suddenly erupted and pierced through him. Chapter 26:59. The Avicii sword pierced through everything, shattering the sky, and pierced through the body of the Crystal King in one breath. The Jing King's body exploded, and golden blood splashed everywhere. It was an incomparably tragic scene. The divine blood splashed and fell into the blood pool, making the blood pool even more turbulent. Whoosh! With another flash, the Crystal King appeared in the distance, panting heavily. Half of his body was gone, and he was almost completely annihilated. If he hadn't dodged at the critical moment, he would have been dead by now. That ominous sword was much more terrifying than he had imagined. Even though he was the king of assassins, he was almost infected by that ominous aura. But even so, he could only barely suppress it. That blood-red sword light was still wreaking havoc in his body. Even with his strength as a divine king, he could not expel it quickly. It was too terrifying. Although he had escaped, he had no way to further injure Yi Shiwen. He could only watch Yi Shiwen, who had been smashed by the heavy water, recover bit by bit. Yi Shiwen's face did not look good. The heavy water was too terrifying. He had the strength to pull up mountains, and he could easily knock down the sun, moon, and stars. But the essence of the heavy water was more than 100 times heavier than the sun, moon, and stars. Not to mention what kind of treasure it could be refined into, just the heavy water alone was already considered to be infinitely powerful. If it was an ordinary Sage Realm expert, just one drop would be enough to smash them to death. Yi Shiwen withstood so much heavy water without being smashed to death. It was already very rare. This was also because the 10,000 spell roulette protected him at the critical moment. Otherwise, he would not have been able to hold on. Without any other magical powers, just this heavy water alone was extremely terrifying. He suddenly thought of the ancient Phoenix Realm's mighty Phoenix clan. They cultivated the law of gravity, and there were many masters in the clan. This gave him another kind of inspiration, one that could bring out his gilded tyrant form to its peak. But he still needed to verify it one by one later. "It's a pity that I couldn't kill you," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. The Crystal King's eyelids twitched. Sure enough, he did it on purpose. He suspected that the whole thing was done on purpose by Yi Shiwen. He did not dodge, and took it head-on, just to have a chance to counterattack. What a cruel heart! He had seen many people who were ruthless to others, but there were only a few who dared to be ruthless to themselves and even fight to the death. Even though their Tao of assassination seemed like they were in a dangerous situation, in reality, if they missed their target, they would immediately flee far away. They would not expose themselves to danger. A wise man does not stand under a collapsing wall. He had been overconfident. How could a king-ranked martial artist not be able to defeat a Sage Realm martial artist? But he didn't want to really fail miserably in such a simple task. At that moment, in his eyes, Yi Shiwen had suddenly become a little more dangerous, and extremely dangerous. It was the first time in history that a sage plane could give him such a feeling. He had never encountered such a situation before. What was even more terrifying was that he had never encountered anyone who dared to treat the King of Assassins as prey. Since ancient times, they had always treated others as prey. However, Yi Shiwen's appearance seemed to indicate that he was genuinely treating them as prey. This mentality was even more dangerous than his strength. "You want to kill me?" Jing Wang coldly glanced at him, stalling for time to recover from his wounds. He was not afraid of Yi Shiwen's sneak attack because Yi Shiwen's injuries were more serious than his. "Why, can't I?" Yi Shiwen sneered. "Or is it that in your line of work, only you are allowed to kill others, and others are not allowed to kill you? You are very bold, but it is a pity that bold people are usually long dead," Jing Wang said coldly. "However, I will be an exception," Yi Shiwen said confidently. "Are you still not leaving? Do you think you can leave after a while?" In the Hidden Valley, there was more than one king-ranked martial artist in charge. By the time they recovered and Jing Wang did not leave, only death would await him. "You don't have to worry about that. Originally, fleeing far away is our creed. However, I feel something different about you. If I don't kill you, my eyelids will keep twitching. So you should just die," Jing Wang said coldly as if he was reading a death sentence. Jing Wang actually felt a little uneasy because of Yi Shiwen's existence. In order to kill this trace of uneasiness in the cradle, he decided to take the initiative and kill the source of the danger. "Of course, as long as I don't die today, your blood massacre gang will be wiped out sooner or later," Yi Shiwen said coldly. His eyes were as cold as the winter. Jing Wang's expression changed. Finally, he did not hold back and truly erupted the power of a king-ranked martial artist. A terrifying power was released from between his eyebrows. Just now, he did not release his true strength. In order not to alarm the higher-ups of the Hidden Valley, he had hidden his strength and sneaked in. Now that he had exposed his strength, he could not hide it for long. The aura of a king-ranked martial artist spread, and it suddenly became much more terrifying. A wave of power was released. Now, Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed. The demon wings on his back instantly opened, and he directly rushed over. Jing Wang had hidden his strength just now. Now, he needed some time to recover. This time was Yi Shiwen's opportunity. It was also the biggest flaw of Jing Wang. When he was fighting with Jing Wang, he had madly deduced all kinds of feasible plans. After the deduction, he found that only this plan had a certain possibility of success. Otherwise, facing the King of Assassins, his chances of survival were too low. Although he was confident, he was not arrogant. The King of Assassins was too terrifying. Swish! A terrifying sword light covered the sky and fell directly towards Jing Wang. The sky collapsed in an instant. In the distance, the mountains in the blood prison trembled crazily, and the rumbling sound lingered in the ears. The whole world trembled under this sword. Bloody light filled the whole world, and a terrible evil spirit appeared. The blazing bloody light made people feel as if they had fallen into the Avicii hell. A huge energy storm was set off. Roar! Jing Wang roared. He had never thought that Yi Shiwen would take advantage of this opportunity to attack. This was a risk in itself. When he unlocked the seal, there would be a moment of weakness, and his aura would not be able to keep up. However, it was only for a moment. Many people would not think of it, let alone take advantage of this moment of weakness. It was simply unthinkable. Some of the gas on his body liquefied, and then solidified into a crystal wall, blocking in front of him. Bang! The peerless collision exploded in an instant. The Avicii sword chi and the crystal wall fiercely collided. The collision formed a storm, annihilating time and space, and rushed into the sky. The sword light pierced the crystal wall in front of Jing Wang, and pierced him in one fell swoop. It once again smashed the half of his body that he had painstakingly condensed. Even Jing Wang himself did not expect that he would be pierced by someone like this one day. Who dares to be so presumptuous in my hidden valley? Finally, the voice of the Lord of Flames could be heard. The battle situation here had finally shocked the Lord of Flames. A terrifying aura of a king shrouded the area. Unknowingly, he had already entered the king-ranked realm. After a period of closed-door cultivation, the Lord of Flames had finally entered the king-ranked realm. He had just been conferred the title of king-ranked realm not long ago. Who would have thought that someone would actually sneak into the blood prison? He was instantly shocked. That direction, wasn't it Yi Shiwen's direction? Almost immediately, he knew the other party's target. Without a doubt, it was Yi Shiwen. He immediately gathered his forces, and with a big stride, he crossed time and space and arrived at the periphery of the blood pool. At this moment, in an instant, a terrifying force fell from the sky. A long sword cut through the sky, and its target was actually the Lord of Flames. The Lord of Flames was shocked and angry. He quickly stopped in his tracks. The place where he was originally standing was already enveloped by a poisonous gas. It actually corroded the space barrier, revealing the endless chaos within. King of Assassins, hidden demon race. The Lord of Flames was extremely sensitive. He almost immediately sensed the presence of the King of Assassins. What's more, it was the King of Assassins of the hidden demon race. At once, the Lord of Assassins was extremely angry. He had been slapped in the face. He had actually been discovered only after someone had entered his lair. In fact, if not for the intense battle that had alerted him, who had just entered the king-ranked realm, he probably would not have discovered the King of Assassins. Was the Hidden Valley being completely underestimated? What made him even angrier was that the other party seemed to have grasped the opportunity. Now that the King of Assassins was in closed-door cultivation, everyone else in the Hidden Valley had gone to participate in the Alliance Army's meeting. At that moment, in the huge Hidden Valley, he was the only king-ranked formidable martial artist left. What's more, he had just ascended. Although he had just ascended and his strong foundations were already above ordinary initial stage king-ranked formidable martial artists, he still did not dare to let his guard down when facing the king of assassins. Hidden demon race, the hidden valley will not let this matter rest, the Lord of Flames shouted angrily. However, there was no response from the sky at all. There was only a formless aura enveloping the Lord of Flames. If he took another step forward, he would attract a lightning-fast attack. At that moment, Yi Shiwen also heard the Lord of Flames roar. Hidden demon race. What a sure-kill situation. Besides the Blood Massacre Society, even the hidden demon race had been invited to send the king of assassins. They really wanted him dead. However, at that moment, Yi Shiwen did not have the time to care about all this. Instead, he took a step forward and charged forward. The Jing King had been severely injured earlier and had not even fully unleashed his strength. This was his best chance. His eyes were cold, and only the word die appeared in his eyes. Chapter 2660. The Jing King's entire body was glowing, distorting the void. Around him, a terrifying aura appeared. Yi Shiwen's attack had directly caused a serious injury to him, but on the other hand, it seemed to have prompted him to release something. Puchi! An unimaginable wave swept in all directions, surpassing the extreme speed, even surpassing Yi Shiwen's current peak speed. Bang! Yi Shiwen was directly swept by the wave and exploded. His body was torn into pieces, flesh and blood flying everywhere. In the sky, the Jing King also took this opportunity to recover from his injuries. His speed had reached the extreme, and the surroundings had turned into a world of crystals. In this world of crystals, he was truly an invincible king. In the void, Yi Shiwen's true body reformed. His face was pale. It had been a long time since he had experienced such an intense battle. Even the battle with Wu Zimo back then had not left him so severely injured. The terror of a king-ranked realm martial artist was far beyond what he knew. He had thought that the Jing King had lost all means to fight back, but he did not expect that he still had such a hidden trump card. "I did not expect that you still have a trump card," Yi Shiwen said lightly, his expression unchanged. Behind him, the wings of demons stretched out, and in his body, the Phoenix regeneration technique was constantly running. Such a serious injury, even for a master of the Sage Realm, was difficult to fully recover. However, Yi Shiwen's Gilded Tyrant Form's recovery ability was amazing. Coupled with the Phoenix regeneration technique, in just a few breaths, he had already recovered to the peak. Unless the Jing King could kill him in an instant, it would be difficult to kill him. He had already seen some of the combat power of a King Realm Master, and was not that weak. It is useless for you to struggle. In this world, you are the second person to be able to force me to use this move. The first was a King Realm Master, and he is already dead. You will be the second, so you should be honored to be able to stand side by side with a King Realm Master, Jing King said indifferently. In this aspect, he was still not as good as Yi Shiwen. His recovery was slightly slower than Yi Shiwen. At this time, more than half of his body had finally recovered. However, this was enough for him to release his full strength. Although it would only take a split second, but in a fight between experts, it was enough to kill him. Boom! The Crystal King made his move once again. It was as if he had transcended time and space, his speed reaching the extreme. A kilometer radius around Yi Shiwen's body collapsed with a loud bang without any warning. The speed of the collapse was ridiculously fast. The 10,000 method roulette and Tianyuan mirror appeared above his head at this time. The double protection prevented him from being killed. Yi Shiwen had always been proud of his speed. Relying on the devil wings, his speed had always been able to suppress the outstanding heroes. But now, he had encountered an existence that could completely suppress him. Not only was the opponent's cultivation level higher than his, but also completely specialized in speed. Even if the quality of the power technique was inferior to Yi Shiwen's, but relying on its tyrannical power, it could suppress Yi Shiwen. Your speed is very fast, but it's useless. In this crystal domain, I am the king. This is my way of proving my Tao. I killed a king with the crystal domain, and that's how I became a king. The Crystal King's voice came from all directions, trying to affect Yi Shiwen's judgment and mind, even to the extent of making the enemy surrender without a fight. This is the 10,000 method roulette of the celestial race, right? Not bad, it suits me. With such a divine tool, coupled with my attack power and defense, no one can do anything to me anymore. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. He only said coldly, "Then let's see if you have the ability to take it." Boom. 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 The Crystal King's attacks fell continuously, coming from all directions like raindrops falling. Only the 10,000 method roulette and Tianyuan mirror could withstand the attacks of a titled king-level expert. If it were other things, they would have already collapsed. What kind of divine tool could withstand the attacks like a storm? Yi Shiwen's counterattack was also extremely fierce. His Avicii sword was coming from all directions, and the corrosion of the Avicii sword was forcibly suppressed by him. Relying on the Mingxin ancient tree to completely suppress and absorb the Avicii sword, sword chi was coming from all directions. This also made the Crystal King incomparably afraid. Otherwise, it would not be so difficult to deal with a junior of the Sage Realm. You are very good, but that's all you are. As soon as the Crystal King's voice fell, a terrible shock wave swept over. It was all the power of crystal, as if the entire blood prison had been crystallized. What was more frightening was that this was not an ordinary crystal, but a kind of law, the Crystal King's natal law. Originally, only his right hand was crystallized, but now his whole body seemed to be made of crystal, looking very powerful. Boom! Yi Shiwen's whole body, along with the 10,000 method roulette and Tianyuan mirror, were blasted away. That crystal shock wave actually penetrated into his body, and his whole body began to crystallize, which made him feel a little numb. It's time to end this. The Jing King let out a roar. Fighting with a junior until now, no matter what the result was, his reputation would not be good if it was spread out. For an assassin, not having an illustrious reputation to intimidate the opponent was a big deal in itself. His figure emerged, and a crystal sword appeared in his hand. He wanted to completely behead Yi Shiwen, kill him with one sword, kill him instantly, and not give him time to recover. Explode! Yi Shiwen suddenly shouted. Suddenly, there seemed to be some kind of power awakening within the Jing King's body under Yi Shiwen's guidance. Unexpectedly, the Jing King's body instantly burst open. Even his crystallized body unexpectedly burst open. The Crystal King staggered, and his face suddenly became ugly. He was actually tricked by Yi Shiwen, and there was still Yi Shiwen's sword energy hidden in his body, which was detonated at the critical moment, causing terrible damage. Ordinary sword energy naturally could not hurt the Crystal King, but if it was the sword energy of the Avicii sword, it would be completely different. "Fall into the Avicii hell for me!" Yi Shiwen shouted, and the Avicii sword in his hand once again burst out an astonishing sword light. He seized this rare opportunity, and instantly chopped off half of the Crystal King's body. Although the Crystal King was terrifying, Yi Shiwen, with the Avicii sword in his hand, had the strength to threaten a titled king-level expert. The Crystal King, who had not fully recovered, was now seriously injured. He finally realized that he had underestimated this junior. Yi Shiwen's methods were terrifying, and his faith was also terrifying. Such a person, even in the most extreme environment, was not broken, and still thought of counterattacking. At this time, the Crystal King finally had a somewhat timid thought, or rather, he had truly acted in accordance with the assassin's code of conduct. He was still too greedy, and wanted to obtain the 10,000 law roulette. Otherwise, he should not have been so greedy when his first attack failed. He still thought too highly of himself, or should it be said that he had underestimated Yi Shiwen. Shua! The Crystal King's speed was unparalleled. He dragged half of his body and fled towards the sky. Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent. A terrifying power rushed out of his body and rushed to his whole body. At this time, he seemed to be experiencing some kind of transformation. Something in his body had completely broken, and the power in his body was like a flood, pouring out in torrent. Boom! Yi Shiwen suddenly stepped on the ground and the void shattered. That crystal world, in just an instant, was completely shattered. The demon wings behind him spread out, and his whole body turned into a ball of light, and he chased after the Crystal King. Junior, don't go too far. Seeing that Yi Shiwen actually chased after him, the Crystal King was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He was extremely ashamed and angry. Being chased by a junior who had not even reached the titled king level would be a stain that he would never be able to wash off for the rest of his life. And the cause of all this was his arrogance. With the strength of the King of Assassins, even a true titled king-level master would tremble with fear. In the end, the Crystal King chose a direction that he was least adept at, a frontal assault. If it had been any other king-level master in the previous battle, the result might have been Yi Shiwen's first step to collapse. At this time, the Crystal King finally understood how arrogant he was before. He had underestimated this monster who had just become famous in the world with the corpses of so many evildoers as a foil. Now it was time for him to pay the price for his arrogance. So what if I bully you too much? Yi Shiwen's expression was cold. From the moment the Crystal King set foot here, he had no intention of letting him go. He used the blood of a king-level master to warn the heroes of the world that his era had begun. After being repeatedly injured, and the crystal world being trampled by Yi Shiwen, the Crystal King's speed was not as fast as before. In just a moment, he was actually caught up. Yi Shiwen stepped down and the sky and earth split. It was as if the world was shaking and everything was being destroyed. Bang! There was a loud sound and a scream. The Jing King screamed in pain. His physical body had actually been torn apart by Yi Shiwen's foot. It was extremely tragic. Immediately after, a sword light fell and minced his physical body and spirit into pieces. Even if he was a King Realm martial artist, under such an attack, there was no way he could survive. Yi Shiwen waved the demon calling banner and Tianyuan mirror, and ate the flesh and blood of the Crystal King. Inside the demon calling banner, many powerful demon kings were transforming. Perhaps they could really transform into king-level masters. Tianyuan mirror was also undergoing the most crucial step of transforming into a top-grade divine tool. Once it crossed this step, it would become a genuine top-grade divine tool. With its own foundation, it could even become a powerful divine tool that was not inferior to the 10,000 spell roulette. Moreover, this was his life's divine tool. It had been refined along the way, and the 10,000 spell roulette could not compare with it. Bang! In this silence, suddenly, the space around Yi Shiwen's body suddenly shattered. A short sword exploded, and a sword light directly swept through the space, slashing towards Yi Shiwen. And the King of Assassins. However, at this critical moment, Yi Shiwen calmly raised his hand and blocked the sword. What, you have entered the titled king level? In the void, an extremely shocked voice came. You are wrong. I have only entered the late stage of the sage level. Chapter 2661. You're wrong. I've only entered the late stage of the sage realm. Yi Shiwen said with a dull look on his face. He was releasing a terrifying power from his body in a steady stream. He was becoming more powerful with every passing moment. His strength would increase with every breath, and his martial power would increase crazily with every heartbeat. This was a terrifying metamorphosis that was realized in his body. He had surpassed the limit of power that the Sage Realm could contain, and he had entered the titled King Realm in one fell swoop. After experiencing all sorts of things, he had finally entered the late stage of the Sage Realm. The battle just now was his catalyst, and it was even intentional. Otherwise, he would not have fought so hard and held on to the Crystal King. He wanted to use the Crystal King's power to allow him to metamorphose and truly cross the last step. This step was extremely difficult for Jiang Yi. As he had taken much less time than others, he was destined to have a much harder time than others. If not for the mysterious space, he would not have been able to do this. It was the mysterious space that had helped him analyze the nomological laws and powers of the king-ranked realm before he had even entered the king-ranked realm. That was why he had the opportunity to take this step. Even Yi Shiwen could not help but be a little surprised. He did not expect that there was a king of assassins hiding, and he did not even move. Even when he watched the Crystal King die, he did not show any signs of making a move. He had taken advantage of the moment when Yi Shiwen was killing the Crystal King to make a move. It had to be said that this was the method of a real king of assassins when it came to ambushes. In order to kill a person, he could hide for 10,000 years without moving. Watching the Crystal King die, he did not waver in the slightest. In the eyes of the king of assassins, even the Crystal King had become bait to lure him to make a move. It could be said that everything was under his control and calculation. Precise calculations, cold and ruthless, and extremely terrifying. But the only thing he did not calculate was that Yi Shiwen could advance further in such an intense battle and enter the late stage of the Sage Realm. And this negligence was the most fatal point. This sword was easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. He faintly smelled a tempting flower fragrance in the air, and he immediately knew who it was. It was the King of Assassins from the Hidden Flower House, one of the 4 major assassin organizations alongside the Hidden Demon Clan and the Bloody Slaughter Society. The legend of the Hidden Flower House was extremely famous in the myriad heavens and realms, but there were not many specific examples about them. They rarely made a move, but every time they did, it was earth-shattering. Even in their heyday, they dared to make a move against the emperor. Later, they angered an emperor who killed them all. From then on, everyone thought that they had declined. Unexpectedly, the Hidden Flower House had reappeared, and the moment it appeared, it was a king of assassins personally making a move. This could not be said to not be a big deal. In this way, there were already 3 king of assassins personally making a move. It was really a big deal. The person behind it could be said that he hated him to the core. One king of assassins to deal with him, a junior of the Sage Realm, was already like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. They thought very highly of him. Unexpectedly, there were actually 3 king of assassins. This was like using a nuclear bomb to kill a chicken. This made him not know whether to laugh or cry at the same time. Was he that big of a threat or that big of a hatred? However, these thoughts only turned for a moment. His expression became even colder. Since you are here, then don't leave. Accompany the Crystal King. At this time, the fragrance of flowers in the air was getting stronger and stronger. It was like the blood flowers of the Blood Slaughter Gang. This was also the symbol of the Hidden Flower House. It looked like the fragrance of flowers, but it was actually extremely poisonous. Those who smelled it would have their intestines pierced in a short period of time, and they would die a horrible death. However, it was impossible to use this move against Yi Shiwen, who had the Gilded Tyrant form. It could not even break his skin. As Yi Shiwen said this, he finally made his move. All the power in his body was flowing, and a shocking aura burst out. His whole body was like Pangu, who split the heavens and the earth apart. He stood tall, flowing with brilliant light. He had just broken through to the late stage of the Sage Realm, and he could not wait to fight. Boom! He threw a punch, and a terrifying aura that could only belong to a master of the titled King Realm exploded in the air. Originally, He had needed to use the sword of Avicii to have the strength to threaten the titled king realm. Now, with just his own strength, he was able to conquer a master of the titled king realm. Rumble! Above the blood prison, the space crazily collapsed, and a figure was finally revealed. It was a mysterious person hidden under countless layers of space. It was a middle-aged man who looked completely ordinary. If one met this middle-aged man in a crowd, one might not even notice that he was a super-killer. He had hidden himself to the extreme. However, he was a king of assassins. So, there is also the matter of the Hidden Flower House. It seems that I will have to go to the Hidden Flower House sooner or later, Yi Shiwen said coldly. Although the Hidden Flower House had always been mysterious, and it was almost impossible to find their roots, since they existed, there was no reason why he could not find them. With his current strength, it was not impossible to find them. The middle-aged man only looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, "You just used some sneaky tricks to kill the Jing King. Do you think you are invincible in the world?" The middle-aged man's eyes were golden, and his body exuded a dangerous aura. As time passed, it became more and more intense. "Sneaky tricks?" Yi Shiwen sneered. "Now I will show you my true strength." Terrifying magic power rushed out of Yi Shiwen's body. The golden magic power made him seem as if he was bathed in a golden glow. He directly blasted out a punch. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Hell Dao. This was the third punch that he had comprehended. In between life and death, he had comprehended this. It was the head of the 3 evil paths in the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The comprehension of the third punch had greatly increased the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The middle-aged man roared and also rushed over with his sword. The sword light was sharp, and it contended with Yi Shiwen's fist intent. Bang! 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 The battle between the two directly caused the void to boil. The middle-aged man's strength was not weaker than the Jing King's. He was even more difficult and terrifying to deal with. If the middle-aged man had been the one to attack first, Yi Shiwen might not have been able to hold on until he broke through to the late stage of the Sage Realm. However, there was no such thing as hypotheses in the world. Yi Shiwen's combat prowess continued to soar. He was improving his powers with every passing second. As he entered the late stage of the Sage Plane, his level slowly stabilized, and he was able to unleash even more powers to fight back. The middle-aged man became more and more shocked as he fought. He could not believe it. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that a junior in the late stage of the Sage Realm could have such domineering combat strength. It was simply unparalleled. He was not even afraid of king-ranked cultivators. Sooner or later, he would be invincible in the world. "I will finish you with another punch." Yi Shiwen's blood was burning and boiling. His fighting spirit had reached its peak, and his aura was even more violent. This was the first time he had truly faced a king-ranked cultivator head-on. He did not hold back and destroyed everything. Boom! This punch was extremely domineering. His tyrant golden body was also activated to the extreme, reaching its peak. The short sword in the middle-aged man's hand shattered inch by inch in an instant, turning into a sky full of light that swept in all directions. The golden shards scattered in all directions without any pattern. Many even blasted directly into the middle-aged man's body. Blood splattered high, and bone fragments flew everywhere. Such a battle was shocking. In the Hidden Valley, many formidable martial artists had already dared to come. However, they did not dare to intervene in the battle between the titled kings. Many of them were already at the Sage Plane, and some were even at the pinnacle of the Sage Plane. While they did not dare to participate in the battle, they were still able to make some judgments. Yi Shiwen had destroyed what could have been a supreme-grade divine artifact with a single punch. Such physical strength was unprecedented and unbelievable. Even in the current Hidden Valley, there seemed to be no one whose physical body could be so strong. Even the legendary Golden Rock King could not achieve such a feat. A top-grade divine implement was different from a top-grade divine implement. It had rule patterns forged by a king-ranked cultivator, and it was connected to the heart and soul. Its power was incomparable, and it was almost the most terrifying weapon in the world. Now, it had been destroyed by a punch from Yi Shiwen. How strong was his physical body? However, Yi Shiwen knew that the dagger hadn't been refined completely. It was between a high-grade divine tool and a top-grade divine tool. After all, it was very difficult to refine a top-grade divine tool. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years it would take even an ordinary king-level expert to find all the divine materials needed to refine a top-grade divine tool, let alone complete the refinement of the dagger. Otherwise, with his current cultivation, he would only be able to contend with a top-grade divine implement at most. He would not have the ability to destroy a top-grade divine implement so easily. Is this all the Hidden Flower Pavilion has? Yi Shiwen let out a long roar that shook the entire blood prison. He was like a trapped dragon that had escaped from its cage. He looked up to the sky and roared. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he rushed towards the Hidden Flower Pavilion's King of Assassins. The Hidden Flower Pavilion's King of Assassins had already been killed by Yi Shiwen's punch. How could he dare to stay? He quickly turned around and fled. He did not care about anything else as he fled towards the periphery of the blood prison. You want to leave? It's too late now. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the Hidden Flower Pavilion's King of Assassins. He held the Avicii sword and chased after him. On the other side, the Flame Lord and the Hidden Demon Clan's King of Assassins were fighting fiercely. At this moment, the Hidden Demon Clan's King of Assassins also saw the situation of the battle. He could not believe it. The Crystal King had fallen, and the Hidden Flower Pavilion's King of Assassins was being chased so miserably. Both of them were not weaker than him. Then, he watched helplessly as Yi Shiwen caught up with the Hidden Flower Pavilion's King of Assassins. Yi Shiwen killed him with one sword. The Tianyuan mirror and the demon beckoning banner swallowed his flesh and blood. He was almost scared to death. Chapter 2662. He did not notice the exact situation just now. Although the Lord of Flames had just become a king, he was not easy to fool. The Lord of Flames could only focus on dealing with the Lord of Flames, or rather, try his best to delay the Lord of Flames. Otherwise, he might not be a match for the Lord of Flames in a head-on battle. He had thought that it would be natural for the two King of Assassins to kill a junior in the Sage Realm. Who would have thought that the two King of Assassins would be killed by Yi Shiwen? Although he did not know how Yi Shiwen did it, the sensitivity of the King of Assassins made him immediately understand that he could not stay for long. He quickly escaped in a beam of light. In the Blood Prison, this was considered one of the core areas of the Hidden Valley. It was impossible for anyone to travel through space to escape or teleport in. The space had been strengthened to the point that even a king would not be able to tear it open and enter. You want to leave? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the Lord of Flames. He was mighty and domineering. On the other side, the Lord of Flames also turned into a ball of fire and chased after Yi Shiwen. He was extremely embarrassed. These people did not respect the Hidden Valley at all. At the same time, his heart was churning like a raging river. He could not believe it. He had been very worried about Yi Shiwen. In the end, he saw Yi Shiwen kill two King of Assassins. One of them was even killed in front of him. Yi Shiwen was even more ferocious than him, a King of Assassins. He felt that he could no longer see through this junior brother of his. Previously, Jiang Yi's strength was already enough to kill those monstrous talents as if they were dogs. Now, Jiang Yi had even broken through to the king-ranked realm. However, Jiang Yi did not sense any nomological laws or aura from Jiang Yi's body. This meant that this junior brother of his actually had the ability to go against the flow and break through to the king-ranked realm. If word of this got out, it would cause a huge uproar. He even had a feeling that his junior brother's future was limitless. Perhaps he could really reach the invincible realm that even king of assassins like him yearned for but could not reach. However, he didn't have the time to think about this at this time. The king of assassins of the Hidden Devil clan was fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Speed was the fundamental method of survival for assassins. However, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen's speed had reached the pinnacle if they were fast. Yi Shiwen's black hair fluttered in the wind. He took a step forward and threw a punch. The dreadful fist energy distorted and shook the entire blood prison. It then bombarded towards the Hidden Devil clan's king of assassins. At this time, Yi Shiwen's dreadful fist energy was no less than that of a formidable king. The Hidden Devil clan's king of assassins turned pale with fright. His entire body burst out with an astonishing devil light. He held a long sword in his hand and turned around to attack. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. This was the ultimate power of a king-ranked realm martial artist. It caused the heavens to explode. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He rushed towards this invincible power. His whole body was flowing with golden rays of light. It was resplendent and magnificent. Boom! The long sword and Yi Shiwen's fist collided, and a dreadful force instantly overcame the arm of the Hidden Devil clan's king of assassins. Bang! The Hidden Devil clan's king of assassins instantly screamed. His entire arm exploded, turning into a bloody mist. His eyes widened in anger when he saw the terrifying scene. Yi Shiwen was hot on his heels, and the Lord of Flames was rushing over as well. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He immediately chanted an ancient incantation, and the blood mist that was drifting in the sky suddenly turned into talismans that filled the sky. Then, they turned into a bloody burning energy that poured into his body, and he went berserk. Sky-piercing strike. He let out a loud roar, and his entire aura became abnormally berserk. This strike was already extremely tyrannical. Even a king-ranked realm martial artist, who was at a higher cultivation level than him, would be seriously injured or even die tragically if he was hit by this strike. The repercussions were huge. However, he had no other choice. Yi Shiwen's qi and blood had also been raised to the peak. All the martial arts in his body were concentrated on his fist. 6 paths of reincarnation. He let out a loud roar as he punched out the 6 paths of reincarnation and smashed it down. The shocking light from the sword pierced into the 6 paths of reincarnation and formed a shocking wave. However, the 6 paths of reincarnation did not move at all. It only suppressed, and suppressed continuously. This punch was really shocking. He had actually suppressed a king of assassins' desperate counterattack. If these king of assassins were to really fight with their lives on the line, they would be far more troublesome than ordinary king realm martial artists. This was because their methods were more insidious. The power that they could erupt in an instant was terrifying. The Hidden Devil clan's king of assassins' strength was gradually weakening. However, Yi Shiwen's fist force was gradually increasing. Finally, it seemed as if it had reached its limit. Bang! The king of assassins of the Hidden Devil clan was sent flying by the power of the backlash. He let out a blood-curdling screech, and his entire chest burst open. Yi Shiwen's 6 paths roulette immediately followed up and suppressed him. Boom! His powerful demonic body exploded in midair. It was torn into pieces, and his spirit was destroyed. The power of Yi Shiwen's punch was so strong that it could shock the heavens and the earth. All the experts in the Hidden Valley were alarmed by this battle. However, they could not help but fall silent when they saw the outcome of the battle. They were extremely shocked in their hearts. They could vaguely remember when Yi Shiwen had just entered the Hidden Valley thousands of years ago. At that time, he had not even reached the Tao-confirming realm. In front of these old antiques, he was just a slightly dazzling junior. Now, he had grown to the point where even they had to look up to him. If this had happened thousands of years ago, no one would have believed it even if they had said it. These people had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. There were even some who had cultivated for millions of years. However, they had been surpassed by a junior in the end. The shock in their hearts could not subside for a long time. However, it was followed by an unusually excited mood. This time, besides the Lord of Flames in the Hidden Valley, Yi Shiwen had also successfully broken through. Although he had not been conferred as a king yet, in terms of combat power, Yi Shiwen was probably comparable to a King Realm martial artist. He could definitely be on equal footing with a King Realm martial artist. This meant that the Hidden Valley had gained 2 more King Realm martial artists in one go. Their strength had suddenly increased by a lot. It was important to know that many King Realm sects only had 1 or 2 King Realm martial artists. The stronger the Hidden Valley was, the more benefits they could obtain. Yi Shiwen fed the Hidden Devil Clan's King of Assassins' bones and blood to the Tianyuan Mirror and the Demon Summoning Banner. At this time, within the Demon Summoning Banner, there were already a few Demon Kings that were about to transform into King Realm martial artists. After devouring these bones and blood, they had even started to reconstruct their true bodies. At that time, they would be no different from ordinary King Realm martial artists. Without a doubt, this would greatly increase Yi Shiwen's strength. "Junior brother Yi, are you all right?" The Sovereign of Flames stepped forward and asked. Seeing how powerful and invincible Yi Shiwen was, he was afraid that Yi Shiwen had used some secret technique to deal with these King of Assassins. If that happened, he might feel good for a while. However, in the future there might be serious repercussions. The gains would not make up for the losses. "I'm fine. I'm very well. I've just broken through, and someone has come to me to practice. This is great." Yi Shiwen grinned and then looked at the Sovereign of Flames. He smiled and said, "I haven't congratulated senior brother for finally becoming a king." The Sovereign of Flames waved his hand, his expression very calm. He said, "It's only a matter of time before I break through to the King Realm. There's nothing strange about it." However, junior brother, you managed to cultivate to this stage in such a short time. Even I, as your senior brother, am ashamed of my inferiority. Senior brother's foundations are strong. After this breakthrough, it's only a matter of time before you break through again. It's not a big deal." Yi Shiwen smiled and said. This time, 3 King of Assassins actually came personally. They really think highly of me. Ha 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 ha, what do you mean by that? I think they are the ones who are underestimating you, junior brother. The Sovereign of Flames laughed heartily, which was rare for him. His originally depressed mood had mostly been swept away. Although the other party was very calculative, the only thing that they had miscalculated was that Yi Shiwen had been able to snatch the King of Assassins to this extent. He was a monster. The Sovereign of Flames knew very well that in terms of attainment level, he was naturally higher than Yi Shiwen. However, in terms of battle skills, Yi Shiwen was probably above him. One had to know that with his monstrous accumulation, ordinary early-stage king-ranked realm martial artists were no match for him. Yet, Yi Shiwen was even above him. The Sovereign of Flames could only say that Yi Shiwen was really a monster. He was going to defy the heavens. However, we cannot let this matter rest so easily. To be able to invite 3 King of Assassins, there must be a powerful force behind them. This time, we must make them pay the price. The Sovereign of Flames said with a serious expression. They were a top-tier king-ranked sect. To think that someone had managed to sneak into their territory. This was a huge humiliation. These people were really audacious. And Yi Shiwen did not stop him. "I will leave these matters to senior brother. Now, I will go into seclusion for a period of time to consolidate my cultivation." "No problem. Leave these matters to me. Junior brother, you don't have to worry about it." the sovereign of flames said. Yi Shiwen nodded, turned, and returned to the top of the blood pool. He began to go into seclusion. This time, besides going into seclusion, he also wanted to refine the Tianyuan mirror to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. He had already become one with the Tianyuan mirror. The stronger the Tianyuan mirror was, the stronger he would be. There were only advantages and no disadvantages. Now that the Tianyuan mirror was just one step away from breaking through, he could use this opportunity to refine the Tianyuan mirror into a supreme-grade divine artifact. Chapter 2663. 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. To the outside world, the confrontation between the Tian clan and the various allied armies had already become the main theme. Finally, after countless wrangling, the various races were finally able to sit down and discuss the establishment of the Third Allied Army. In order to find the Heavenly Clan expert who had obtained the opportunity to become a martial emperor, the Allied forces began to sweep through all the Heavenly Clan's strongholds. They had to find and kill him in the shortest time possible. The only good news was that the opportunity to become a martial emperor had been largely destroyed by Yi Shiwen. It was not complete. It would not be easy for the other party to use this opportunity to become a martial emperor. Therefore, with the help of the martial sect, Yi Shiwen became a hero who had made great contributions. His name became more and more well-known as the Heavenly Clan team's incident became more and more mainstream. However, in their opinion, Yi Shiwen was still only a Sage Realm expert. He was not qualified to be a king. The incident of the 3 King of Assassins attacking the Hidden Valley was concealed by the Hidden Valley. The experts of the Hidden Valley naturally knew the severity of the matter. Therefore, although everyone knew that the Hidden Valley had been attacked, no one knew that the 3 King of Assassins had actually died in Yi Shiwen's hands. They only thought that they had been killed by the other kings of the Hidden Valley. The Hidden Valley flew into a rage because of this. They wanted to investigate the murderers behind these King of Assassins. Everyone was well aware that the only person who would have the guts and the motive to assassinate Yi Shiwen was none other than those monstrous geniuses whose disciples had been killed by Yi Shiwen. In fact, there was no one else who would have the guts and motive to assassinate Yi Shiwen. But in general, the situation in the heavenly realm was gradually becoming tense. This was because after dozens of years, the Allied forces had not found the whereabouts of the silver-haired young man. They could not help but feel anxious. The Heavenly Clan might not be considered much now. However, if he was able to become a martial emperor in the future, it would be a disaster for the heavenly realm. In the depths of the blood prison, above the blood pool, suddenly, a violent burst of blood light shot into the sky. A majestic aura belonging to the King realm swept out, instantly alarming many old antiques who were cultivating in the depths of the blood prison. This was definitely the aura belonging to the King realm. There was no doubt about it. However, who had broken through to the King realm? They saw a big hand slap out, directly collecting the aura of the King realm. In front of Yi Shiwen, Tianyuan mirror was constantly floating up and down, exuding a formidable aura. It has finally recovered to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. One could never overestimate the usefulness of a natural divine artifact to a god. However, the Tianyuan mirror itself was of a very high grade. Now it was only recovering. If it was an ordinary king-ranked formidable martial artist who wanted to refine a natural divine artifact, he or she would have to spend 100,000 years or even hundreds of thousands of years just to find the right divine ingredients to refine a natural divine artifact. Divine materials that could refine supreme-grade god artifacts were extremely precious without exception, and they couldn't be obtained under ordinary circumstances. In these 50 years, not only had he formed a blood bond with the Tianyuan mirror, but the few demon kings in the demon summoning banner had also reached the king-ranked realm. They had become true monarchs, and the demon-summoning banner had also been restored to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. Just like the Tianyuan mirror, the quality of the demon-summoning banner was originally frighteningly high. If it could be restored to its peak, its power would be frighteningly great. Apart from these, Yi Shiwen had also modified the sword in the stone. He had added all the heavy water essence into the sword in the stone, making it a treasure sword that was heavier than the sun, moon, and stars. When the sword slashed down, even without any other nomological laws or remarkable powers, just its shocking weight alone was enough to completely crush all enemies into pieces. "Junior brother, have you come out of seclusion?" At this moment, the Lord of Flames' figure appeared not far away. Yi Shiwen took a look and saw that it was a doppelganger. It wasn't Yi Shiwen himself who had come. "Yes, I've just formed a blood bond." Yi Shiwen nodded. He hadn't wasted the past 50 years. He had completely consolidated his cultivation as a sage late-stage cultivator. If he met those king of assassins again, even if he had to fight 1 against 3, he wouldn't feel any pressure. His improvement was astonishing. "Senior brother, why have you come personally?" Yi Shiwen asked. The Lord of Flames was very busy. He wouldn't come personally for trivial matters, even if it was just a doppelganger. "It's like this. I'm now at the base camp of the Alliance army. I'm leading an army, and I'm going to destroy a stronghold of the remnants of the heavenly race. I wonder if Junior brother has the time? If you do, it would be best if we could go together." The Lord of Flames nodded and said, "Base camp of the Alliance army? Senior brother, I've been in seclusion all this time. I'm not sure what's happening outside. Could I trouble Senior brother to explain it to me?" Yi Shiwen asked. "Of course, that won't be a problem," the Lord of Flames said. "During this time, the main thing is that the Alliance army has been established. All king-ranked martial artists will have the opportunity to lead an army. All the major factions have to send out a large number of martial artists to form an army to deal with the remnants of the heavenly race." "I see." Yi Shiwen nodded. However, he wasn't surprised. After all, these things had happened twice in the past. So, it could be said that he was very familiar with it. Especially those races and forces who had participated in the war of resistance against the heavens twice. So, he was completely familiar with it. Yi Shiwen had also heard about this. He had read about it in the ancient records. "Senior brother, I didn't go because I needed to consolidate my cultivation. Now that I've consolidated it, I have to go. There are some things that I can't escape," the Lord of Flames said. "However, Junior brother, if you want to lead an army, I think it's enough. Although you're not at the king-ranked realm, you have the strength to do so. You can give it a try." Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, "It's all right. This is just a small matter. As long as we can eliminate the remnants of the heavenly race and find that silver-haired young man, everything else is fine." Apart from a small number of gods who cultivated the Tao of military formations, the others weren't too willing to get involved. They just couldn't avoid it. "I wonder if we've found out the identity of that silver-haired young man? Such a person shouldn't be unknown in the heavenly race," Yi Shiwen continued. "And indeed, this person's name is Rebellious Emperor. He was glorious tens of thousands of years ago. He was even earlier than me. He even attracted the pursuit of various races. There were even some king-ranked realm experts among them. However, he managed to escape. I haven't heard any news about him in recent years. I thought he had fallen or been killed by some powerful person. I didn't expect him to come out and obtain the opportunity to become a martial emperor," the Lord of Flames said. "Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. If you hadn't cut off the opportunity to become a martial emperor, based on past experience, I'm afraid Rebellious Emperor would have succeeded. When that time comes, it would be a real disaster." Yi Shiwen looked a little regretful. No matter what, not destroying the opportunity to become a martial emperor was not destroying it. It left behind a huge hidden danger. "If that's the case, I'll go to the Alliance headquarters and help senior brother. The Alliance headquarters was located in the depths of the God Burial Star Ocean. During the previous two war against the heavens, the headquarters was set up here. Until now, it was still well equipped. Even when the battle was at its most intense, it had never fallen. Therefore, it was chosen as the Alliance headquarters this time. In other words, this Alliance headquarters had always existed. However, after each war against the heavens, it would disperse, leaving only a small number of people to guard. Now it was time to reactivate. From afar, one could see that one world was connected to another. Looking from afar, it was impossible to see how many worlds this so-called headquarters was made up of. The entire Alliance headquarters was very huge. From afar, one could see that it was majestic and very lively. There were many tyrannical auras faintly revealed. Even from afar, Yi Shiwen could feel them. However, he wasn't surprised. In the Alliance headquarters, almost all the powerful races and forces in the heavens and myriad realms had been captured. It wasn't surprising how many experts there were. Yi Shiwen had just arrived when the Lord of Flames, who had received the news from his doppelganger, rushed over personally. "Junior brother, you're finally here," the Lord of Flames said as a smile appeared on his face. He had just been bestowed the title of king. As a newly ascended king, he didn't know how many people were watching him. If he made a mistake, he might become the target of others' attack. If Yi Shiwen was there to help him, then everything would undoubtedly be much simpler. Others might not know Yi Shiwen's strength, but how could he not know? "Senior brother, let's not talk too much. Let's go first. We should be setting off soon," Yi Shiwen said. And Yi Shiwen followed the Sovereign of Flames as they passed through layers of space. Along the way, no one dared to stop them. Although the Sovereign of Flames was a newly ascended sovereign, he was still a bona fide king-ranked martial artist. No one dared to stop him. Soon, they arrived at a very secluded world. At a glance, there were hundreds of thousands of people in the world. Among them, the weakest was a demigod expert. Basically, the officers above the rank of sergeant were all gods who had proven their Tao. They could be said to be the elites of the elite. "Junior brother Yi, this is the army that I lead. I am the army commander of this army. If you don't mind, I would like to appoint you as the deputy army commander of this army. In the future, your words will be my words. When I'm not around, you will have the right to exercise the authority of the army commander." The Lord of Flames stared at Yi Shiwen. However, before Yi Shiwen could agree, someone objected. "I don't agree." Chapter 2664. Who else has any objections? Yi Shiwen didn't even look at the half-crippled Sage Eagle. Instead, he spoke coldly. The Flame Lord's face immediately darkened. "Sage Eagle, why are you objecting?" Soon, Yi Shiwen also stepped onto the transmission array. His vision turned black. When he came out, he was already in an extremely spacious universe. At a glance, it seemed like an ordinary universe. There was nothing special about it. However, Yi Shiwen took a closer look and could see that the entire universe was filled with all kinds of array formations and boundaries. There were also array formations that could conceal one's whereabouts. Therefore, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see through them. "Oh? You said that he isn't suitable. Then, do you think that you are suitable?" The Master of Flames smiled faintly. The depressed expression on his face instantly disappeared like snow melting away. However, it was an expert from the Demon Eagle race who stood out. This was a little interesting. However, that was the case. The entire army was made up of formidable martial artists from various clans and factions. They were all from the King Bestowal sect, which was an eternal and immortal force. Even King Bestowal formidable martial artists would find it hard to convince them. The people behind them were not any weaker either. Kill all these remnants of the heavenly race." The Flame Lord's roar reverberated throughout the entire universe. Everyone started moving at once. They removed the array formations that were used to conceal their whereabouts. In an instant, the entire universe was filled with people. His words resonated with many people. Why was Yi Shiwen above them? He was just a junior. Allowing him into the army was already considered taking care of him. However, he had actually become a deputy army lord. There were several deputy army lords in this army. However, none of them had received such an appointment like the Flame Lord. When he wasn't around, this lad's words were equivalent to being the army lord. It was tantamount to placing him above everyone else. In order to conceal their stronghold, the heavenly race had put in a lot of effort. Bang! It seemed as if the Falcon Sage himself had crashed into Yi Shiwen's finger. Then, he was sent flying as if he had received a heavy blow. The crowd was very excited. Almost all the clans had a blood feud with the heavenly race. They also knew what this battle meant. If the heavenly race succeeded in having an expert, then they would all have to die. Even if their clans weren't destroyed, they would still have to work for the heavenly race. Relying on the long-cherished wish of winning 2 heavenly wars, they didn't even need to mobilize their emotions. I don't agree. Someone stood up almost immediately. Yi Shiwen turned his head and looked. It was a huge devil eagle. It had restrained itself a lot. However, its body was still as huge as a small hill. It had transformed into a middle-aged man while speaking. However, his appearance was similar to that of an ordinary devil. His whole body was covered with black scales, and he had 2 wings on his back. He looked quite formidable. He looked very formidable. Let me see how powerful you are. After dealing with this troublemaker and suppressing the opposition, the operations of the entire army immediately became smoother. They could all see that the Lord of Flames might not make a move, but Yi Shiwen might not. With such a ruthless deputy army leader, they naturally wouldn't dare to do anything behind the scenes. Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen's relationship with the Demon Eagle clan was very tense. The Demon Eagle clan had even gathered a group of people to go to the Hidden Valley and force them to hand Yi Shiwen over. Boom! Even with the prestige of a king-ranked expert, he didn't dare to say that he could subdue these people in a short period of time. Furthermore, the Flame Lord had just advanced to the king-ranked realm. In fact, in this army, there were probably many old antiques who had cultivated longer than the Flame Lord. It wouldn't be that easy to subdue them. This conflict was just a small example. Many people were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Roar! However, this is a little too much. They actually casually appointed Yi Shiwen as the deputy army lord. Are they really going to let this junior who has cultivated for less than 10,000 years be above us? Eagle Saint continued. He had finally found a chance to challenge the Flame Lord's authority. Yi Shiwen didn't say anything. He just frowned slightly. From this matter, it was obvious that the Flame Lord's control over this army was rather limited. Roar! At this moment, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Who would dare to have any objections? What kind of joke was this? Even Eagle Saint's strength had been crippled, let alone them. Eagle Saint's strength was already at the peak of the Sage realm. In fact, he wasn't much weaker than ordinary monsters. However, he had been sent flying by Yi Shiwen's finger. He didn't even have the ability to pose a threat. Roar! The teleportation formations lit up one by one. Countless demigods in groups of tens of thousands stepped onto the teleportation formations. Battle beasts roared in the universe, opening the prelude to the attack. Kill all the remnants of the Celestial clan. As the saying goes, one should not shy away from family. I think I am indeed qualified to be the deputy army lord. As for this guy, I don't think he is qualified. Eagle Saint glanced at Yi Shiwen as if he was provoking him. His eyes were full of disdain. Anyway, they had already fallen out. There was no need to be particular. There were even more people who wanted to watch the show. They added fuel to the fire, making the matter bigger and bigger. Kid, what did you say? Eagle Saint immediately took a step forward and shouted. The entire starry sky instantly exploded. Although Eagle Saint was a little arrogant, he was indeed strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to challenge the Flame Lord. Previously, when he was advancing, he almost died tragically in the hands of the King of Assassins. Although he didn't know who hired them, it was definitely the work of the Demon Eagle clan. This was without a doubt. Now, he was just collecting some interest. Such a situation had happened a few times in the past few years. After all, nobody knew how much the Celestial clan had developed to this day. Perhaps there were spies of the Celestial clan among the higher-ups of the major forces. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Countless people were present, but none of them made any loud noise. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen with fear in their eyes. Yi Shiwen had lost his strength. According to the legends, he had beheaded many evildoers, but now it seemed that he was even more terrifying than the legends. I said that you're not qualified. How about this? I'll leave immediately if you can block even one of my fingers. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. It seemed as if he didn't care about the Hawk Sage at all. Of course, he had also heard that each force had a pure legion composed of the experts of their own forces. This was the real combat power in their hand. It was the most elite legion. As for this mixed legion, it seemed that the experts of various clans had been mobilized. It should be a gathering of elites. In fact, it was even more difficult to control because of this. Let's go since there are no objections. Why are we still wasting time? Yi Shiwen said. All right. Eagle Saint was already very angry with Yi Shiwen. He might have hesitated if Yi Shiwen had said that he wasn't a match for him. He might have looked uncouth, but he was actually a very astute person. How could he not have heard of Yi Shiwen's fierce name? However, Yi Shiwen had dared to say that he couldn't even block a finger of Yi Shiwen. If he endured this, then he would have no dignity in the future. It's not up to you to say whether I am qualified or not. However, I feel that you are definitely not qualified. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and said. He had crashed into half of the world when he had been sent flying. Countless armies had set out to battle. It was natural that they would move in a mighty manner. However, it was different this time. In order to launch a surprise attack, they didn't take the conventional route at all. Instead, they directly used the transmission array. The demonic claws formed by the Hawk Sage's demonic chi exploded in an instant, as if they were made of paper. They looked extremely weak. However, Yi Shiwen didn't panic. Then, he directly pointed his finger under everyone's gaze. Just like what he had said before, it wasn't even a finger technique. It was just a simple finger pointing. Bang! Woo woo woo! The horn of an unknown ominous beast was blown. It was like a muffled thunder. It exploded in the entire universe, bringing about a shocking wave of air. The entire universe was shaking. The Flame Lord wasn't disgusted with Yi Shiwen's command. Originally, most kings weren't interested in leading an army except for some experts who were born to practice the way of war. After all, no matter how many troops there were, it wouldn't be as carefree as improving their strength. This strength was enough to lead an army alone, let alone being a deputy army commander. Eagle Saint's claw suddenly slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Terrifying demonic energy seeped out and shook the vast universe as the claw descended. One didn't even need to think to know what kind of deep hatred this was. With his strength, if someone had sent a message secretly, how could it be hidden from him? He landed on the ground and set off boundless dust. After that, he didn't move anymore. It was as if he was dead. The Flame Lord took the lead and took the lead. Yi Shiwen was responsible for holding the line. He would only leave after the last person had passed. He still needed to monitor the possible spies in this army. Someone had gone to scout early in the morning. They had also set up a transmission array. Then, they could use the transmission array to directly teleport to the vicinity of the stronghold. This was to prevent the enemy from escaping after receiving the news. Army Commander, we all know that you are from the Hidden Valley. It's normal for you to be biased towards the people of the Hidden Valley, said Eagle Saint with a cold smile. Although he spoke politely, he was actually harboring evil intentions. He had directly labeled the Flame Lord as a nepotistic. He might look like an uncouth old man, but he was actually a cunning person. Chapter 2665. One war beast after another lined up in the void. Each of them was as big as a star, and they were all ferocious beasts that were specially captured for war. Each of these war beasts was like a moving fortress, with terrifying power that swept in all directions. Even though this army wasn't the most top-notch, the most elite army, it was already enough. The scales were dense, extremely terrifying. Behind these war beasts, real war fortresses appeared one after another. Each of them was the size of a gigantic star. Their cold appearance gave off a terrifying aura that was vast and mighty. The entire universe was shaking violently. At the same time, many array masters began to move, setting up a spatial enchantment in the surrounding space to prevent the remnants of the Tian clan from escaping. Such a huge aura finally alarmed the remnants of the Tian clan in the stronghold. This is too terrifying. How can there be so many experts? Damn it, our stronghold actually alarmed the encirclement of an entire legion. Many experts of the Tian clan were terrified. Although they claimed to be a race that ruled on behalf of the heavens, not everyone was the heavens. Encountering such a level of encirclement was simply like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Everyone felt as if every pore of their body was filled with ice. Their bodies suddenly turned cold. Were they really going to die here? This battle is destined to be a bloodbath. Yi Shiwen, who was hiding in the army far away, looked at the battle that had already begun in front of him. Countless powerful warriors of various races rushed over. The array formations on the battle fortresses behind them exploded one after another. Endless energy turned into energy pillars that swept out, directly piercing through the concealment arrays of the Tian clan, revealing the true appearance of the stronghold. The entire stronghold was also formed from a series of huge worlds, but it was concealed by the array formation. These war beasts stepped on the beat of the drums and rushed in. At the same time, the Tian clan's array formations also began to counterattack. Waves of energy swept out, actually fighting against the allied forces of the various races. Swish! 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 Loud sounds of something tearing through the air could be heard. Arrows that were as thick as mountains shot out from the war fortresses, bringing with them an extremely terrifying might. They pierced through the sky and smashed into the Tian clan's stronghold. Before the countless Tian clan experts could even react, they were actually pierced through by the arrow. At the same time, even more experts from various races swept towards the Tian clan's stronghold like a tide. All of them were divine archers, they all drew their bows, and a dense and endless rain of arrows rained down. It was unknown how many experts of the Tian clan were killed in one wave. Many of the Tian clan experts didn't even have time to react before they were turned into hedgehogs. This was the most terrifying part about them. The first line of defense could not stop the allied forces of the various races at all. Tens of thousands of cavalry swept past as the vanguard of the army. Clang! 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 At this time, in the Tian clan's stronghold, the sound of bells continuously rang out, informing the Tian clan experts inside to come over. However, it was useless. Very quickly, the allied forces had already attacked the second line of defense. The first line of defense was simply too easy. It was as easy as blowing off dust. They had the advantage in strength, and they had also caught the Tian clan off guard. Many of the Tian clan experts who were still at the first line of defense were swept clean in time, not even leaving behind a single drop of blood essence. Among the experts of the various races, there were many who relied on devouring blood essence to advance. The Tian clan's first line of defense was mostly a defensive zone, but when they reached their second line of defense, many worlds had already appeared. These were all worlds that the ordinary clansmen of the Tian clan relied on to survive in, and now, they were being destroyed one by one under the iron hooves. One world after another, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The earth shattered, and the sky seemed to have been torn in half by some huge force. A world turned into dust in less than a quarter of an hour. This army was extremely terrifying. It had a terrifying destructive power that ordinary people could not imagine. The Tian clan's defense line had not been organized yet, and all of the defenses were spontaneous. They would collapse upon contact, and would not cause any trouble for them. It was as if the entire sky and earth were occupied by the allied forces of the various races. Even though Yi Shiwen was following behind, he still felt a surge of emotions. This was a completely different great Tao from his usual battles, the Tao of war. What was the trend of the times? This was the trend of the times. Even a king-ranked martial artist would have to think twice if he wanted to stop such a trend. If he was not careful, he would have to pay a heavy price. Above these formations, everyone's body was emitting a strong blood aura. When they were entangled together, they formed something called the army's soul. This was something that a strong army needed. At the same time, in the distant rear, there were many warriors who were proficient in talismans burning talismans in a frenzy. The power of these talismans would all be added to the frontline soldiers, making them even wilder and more terrifying. Perhaps it was because they had not experienced war for too long, but although the second line of defense had some fortifications, it was obviously not full. It could not stop the allied forces of the various races at all. Under the lead of tens of thousands of cavalry vanguards, they directly charged towards the third line of defense. Behind them, countless battle beasts and battle fortresses were also advancing crazily. Waves of terrifying energy swept across the sky, breaking through one array after another. They were simply like gods of destruction. The third line of defense was obviously much stronger than the first two lines of defense. It was already close to the core and elite areas of the Tian clan. The resistance there was suddenly much stronger, and many god-ranked experts had even appeared. Moreover, the Tian clan itself was a race of geniuses. There were no fools among them, they were all geniuses. Even an ordinary Tian clan member could cultivate to a very high level. After arriving here, the population suddenly became denser. Many commoners spontaneously began to resist the allied forces of the various races. However, the effect was not very obvious. Screams could be heard continuously. Compared to the various races who had been through many battles, there was still a big gap. Moreover, the experts of the allied forces of the various races also attacked. Even the other deputy army lords attacked at this time. With terrifying power, all resistance was suppressed. This was a massacre, a one-sided massacre. There was no way to resist at all. Roar! The figure of a huge ferocious beast came out from the Tian clan's stronghold. This was a guardian beast of the Tian clan. It was very powerful and terrifying. When it reached the fourth line of defense, it finally met a decent resistance. Its body emitted an extremely terrifying aura. The vital energy it spat out was extremely poisonous. Many god-ranked experts who could not dodge in time were actually poisoned by the poisonous gas and were completely killed. And this ferocious beast was still constantly recovering, emitting a terrifying and blazing aura. This terrifying ferocious beast finally stopped the invincible allied forces of the various races. Wherever it passed, flesh and blood flew everywhere. The warriors of the various races were simply wailing in pain. They were not a match for it at all. This was a ferocious beast that had already entered the king-ranked realm. This was the true foundation of the Tian clan. It was not something that outsiders could imagine. At this time, the Lord of Flames also stood up and said, "Junior brother, I will leave this place to you to command. I will go and meet this Beast King. According to the information I received previously, the person in charge of this stronghold should be this Beast King. Once he is killed, the remaining members of the Tian clan in this stronghold will be like a group of dragons without a leader. When that time comes, it will be much easier to deal with them. After the Lord of Flames finished speaking, he did not wait for Yi Shiwen to say anything else as he immediately disappeared. When he reappeared, he was actually in front of this Beast King. In his hand a flame suddenly rose up, illuminating the entire universe. Then, with a flip of his hand, this flame was immediately overturned. Then, as if this flame had been ignited, it started to burn crazily. These flames burned fiercely, forming a sea of fire that actually enveloped this Beast King. Lord of Flames, I did not expect that even you have entered the king-ranked realm. This Beast King's blood was surging, and the scales on its body stood up. Its body's magic power was surging as it actually wanted to use its magic power to forcefully extinguish the flames. If I remember correctly, not long ago, you should have participated in the battle against the Phoenix King. It's a pity that the tables have turned. It is now your turn to be surrounded and killed. The Lord of Flames had an astounding memory. He still remembered those people who had surrounded and killed the Phoenix King. That incident had shocked the entire world. Although the Hidden Valley had not been directly involved, they had still used various methods to understand what had happened. Otherwise, just the 12 heavenly generals alone would not have been able to hurt the Phoenix King even if they had 10 times the number of people, much less kill the Phoenix King. That's right, you also know about this. Ha 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 ha, isn't the Phoenix King known to be invincible? What happened in the end? This Beast King's face revealed a proud smile. Then, it pounced towards the Lord of Flames. Although it seemed like a simple movement, in reality, every movement was very peculiar. Every strike was very simple, but very powerful. Even with the Lord of Flames' strength, he actually felt a huge pressure. Bang! 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 2 powerful king-ranked martial artists were fighting in the heavens. As the battle escalated, both of them consciously avoided the others. Compared to the king-ranked martial artists, they were really too weak. The intense battle was hard to determine a victor. Suddenly, a huge hand reached out from the void, grabbed a treasure sword, and slashed it towards the Lord of Flames. "You lowly fellow, how dare you bully me with numbers?" A loud shout came from the various races' alliance army. Chapter 2666. How dare you bully me with numbers? A loud roar came from the Alliance army. Yi Shiwen roared and attacked. His fist swept across the sky, shattering countless matrices. An elder stumbled out of the sky. He was still a little surprised. That fist force had almost killed him. If he had not reacted quickly enough, he would have been dead by now. He looked at Yi Shiwen again. Yi Shiwen was just a junior in the late stage of the Sage Plane, but he was able to unleash such combat power. Even in the Heavenly Clan, such a person was rare. He was an old antique who had survived from the last battle. It seemed that even in that era, such a person was rare. He steadied himself. His blood was threatening, and a terrifying aura burst from his withered body. Although he was skinny, he was more terrifying than expected. That withered body was like an invincible demon, standing tall. Many experts of the Allied forces felt an incomparably terrifying suppressive force pressing down on them. Even the Sage Plane Masters were no exception. This was the terror of king-ranked masters. Even if they were just standing there and did not attack, they still had a terrifying aura that was hard to resist. Ordinary people would not be able to deal with them. At that moment, the Master of Flames was fighting with that ferocious beast. He would not be able to do anything here. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen. That attack had beaten the king-ranked masters into such a sorry state. It had become their last hope. Perhaps even a king-ranked master would not be able to stop such a powerful army. However, if a king-ranked master went crazy, the entire army might be heavily injured. They would suffer heavy losses. Yi Shiwen did not disappoint. He walked out and said loudly, "You don't have to worry about this. Kill your way in. Today, no one from the Heavenly Clan is allowed to leave. Kill them all. Leave this place to me." Younger generation, you are a bit too complacent. If the 10 great kings were to personally take action, there might still be a chance, but you want to act so viciously with just you? The Tian clan elder attacked coldly, his strength frightening. In the 10,000 domains, there had always been the so-called 10 great kings. They were the pinnacle of all the king-ranked realm martial artists. They were also the most powerful martial artists that everyone knew of in the 10,000 domains. Yi Shiwen did not know what other formidable martial artists were hiding in the shadows. However, on the surface, this was already a top-notch battle. There's no need for the top 10 kings to deal with you. You're just another old guy who's taking advantage of his seniority, Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. Good lad, you have a sharp tongue. Today, I will show you that the power of a king-ranked realm cultivator is not something you can challenge. The old man from the Tian clan was expressionless as he instantly attacked. He punched out with one hand and turned into an azure dragon. It roared towards the sky and directly swooped down towards Yi Shiwen. His blood surged, and he actually turned into an azure dragon. This was not the usual azure dragon intent. He must have used some special secret technique. The azure dragon whizzed down, bringing with it a terrifying astral wind. Even the gods who were watching from afar were shocked. The frightening power tore everything apart, and no one dared to go near. Hell Dao! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and blasted out a punch. The fist in tension twisted and transformed into a huge hell that devoured everything. All the wronged souls and wild ghosts were wailing unceasingly in it, but the aura it exuded was vast and mighty. Boom! The azure dragon directly entered the hell. With a flip, it killed countless vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts. However, it was useless. There were too many vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts in the hell. There was no way to kill them all. They were formed by Yi Shiwen's unparalleled mental strength. How could this azure dragon shake Yi Shiwen's profound strength? Dang, dang, dang! In such a collision, the old man from the Tian clan actually took a few steps back before he could barely stop himself. In the collision with Yi Shiwen, he actually suffered a small loss. As for Yi Shiwen, he didn't move at all. The space under his feet instantly collapsed. Obviously, he had already transformed all his strength into the void under his feet. Even the chaos could be seen collapsing. That's all you've got? Have you been living like a dog all these years? Yi Shiwen sneered. The old man from the Tian clan was shocked and bewildered. In the end, he sighed and said, You must be that Yi Shiwen who has been in the limelight recently. I didn't expect that this time you would also participate. However, suddenly, the old man's expression changed. It became ferocious and joyful. Just in time, ha ha ha, I can kill a great enemy of my clan. I originally thought that I could only kill the Flame Master this time. I didn't expect that I would be able to draw another person to die with me. Yi Shiwen's expression suddenly changed. He immediately understood that there was an ambush. Old friends, all of you come out. This kid is very troublesome. It seems that I can't deal with him alone. The old man from the Tian clan said slowly. And just as the old man's voice fell, a few figures appeared around him. They saw a middle-aged man appear on an ancient chariot. This chariot was completely blood-red and emitted a terrifying aura. War King! When this person appeared, the experts of the Tian clan cheered, and the morale of the allied forces of the various races dropped. Then, countless feathers floated in the void. A young man with 2 wings on his back that looked like an angel appeared. However, Yi Shiwen could clearly feel that this aura was not that of an angel, nor was it a fallen angel. It was another kind of creature. This was very normal. In the world, many species looked similar. It was just like how many species looked extremely similar to the human race, but they were simply worlds apart from the human race. Feather King. It was another well-known existence on the side of the Tian clan. He had once fought against the experts of the various races and made an immortal name for himself. He was extremely terrifying. The void twisted like a vortex, and a figure slowly emerged from it. His entire body blended into the void. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see clearly whether there was a person or not. Void King. The arrival of these three kings caused the morale of the allied forces of the various races to drop again and again. They almost collapsed directly. Why were there so many experts here? Logically speaking, it was impossible. Although there might be a transmission array in the stronghold, they had already sealed all the space when they arrived. Even if there was a transmission array, it was impossible for the other party to teleport here. Then there was only one possibility, and that was that the other party had long been prepared and had been lying in ambush here. Thinking of this, everyone's morale collapsed even more. There was a traitor among them. This was even more devastating than encountering a strong enemy. Could it be that they couldn't escape this time? If the previous vicious beast king was included, then it meant that the other party had 5 kings, and their side only had 2. The gap between the two sides could be seen from this. Ha ha ha, just the right time to get rid of them all. If such people grow up, they might really become an obstacle for our race. King Feather laughed out loud and instantly made his move. Countless feathers instantly condensed into a treasured saber. The treasured saber exuded an immortal aura. In an instant it sliced through the heavens and descended. The allied forces of the various races revealed a look of despair. This King Feather's strength could kill more than 1/10 of them with one saber strike. This was how terrifying a king-ranked realm martial artist was. Even if they joined forces, they could only kill one king-ranked realm martial artist at most. There were 5 powerful king-ranked realm martial artists here. Just as the saber slashed down, more feathers turned into huge hands and grabbed Yi Shiwen's legs tightly, pinning him firmly in the void. Yi Shiwen himself didn't move at all. Just as the saber light was about to kill him, he finally made his move. The sword in the stone swept out horizontally, creating a shocking sword aura. Countless sword Tao and stone Tao nomological laws turned into talismans and slashed down. The talismans slashed down fiercely, forming ripples of the great Tao. Boom! With a loud sound, a dazzling light exploded in the void. The saber light clashed with Yi Shiwen's sword light. The friction produced the most dazzling light, and the explosion of energy was swept out. Even the vast universe and the many gods found it hard to withstand such a terrifying attack. The sea of stars was reduced to ashes. This kind of unparalleled divine might was shocking. At that moment, many of the pinnacle sage plane martial artists understood the difference between them and king-ranked realm martial artists. It was like heaven and earth, and it was difficult to make up for. However, Yi Shiwen before them was clearly an exception. He was actually able to fight against a king-ranked realm martial artist. The energy waves dissipated with great difficulty, and the magic charms were also annihilated one after another. Only then did the 2 people appear in the arena. However, they saw that Feather King had unexpectedly retreated 2 steps. It seemed that he was no different from before. Yi Shiwen's strength was formidable and dreadful. This brat is indeed troublesome. For the sake of our race, we can't let him live, King Feather said through gritted teeth. He was slightly shocked when he attacked just now. This brat was already so difficult to deal with when he was only at the sage plane. What more when he became a king-ranked realm martial artist? Who would be able to stop him then? That's right. Kill him! The War King roared. The chariot under his feet charged forward, emitting a vicious aura and blood-red light that swept through the sky. Every beam of blood-red light turned into a blood-red world, covering the sky and covering the earth. At that moment, the few King Realm martial artists had already made up their mind. They were going to team up and kill Yi Shiwen. They no longer cared about fighting one-on-one. Junior Brother Yi, the Lord of Flames, panicked. His opponents were 4 king-ranked martial artists. How could he not be afraid? However, the Beast King knew what this meant. Thus, he refused to let the Lord of Flames go even if he had to die. Instead, he held the Lord of Flames back. Chapter 26:67. The Lord of Flames was much stronger than this Beast King. Back then, the Lord of Flames was also a demon-level prodigy. If not, he would not have been able to take charge of the Hidden Valley for so many years. Thus, now that he had broken through to the king-ranked realm, he had to be much stronger than ordinary early-stage king-ranked realm martial artists. If he had more time, he might even be able to break through to the mid-stage king-ranked realm in one go. However, it would not be so easy to get rid of this Beast King. At the same time, he was terrified. If he had not suddenly sensed danger and went to look for Yi Shiwen, he would probably have died on the battlefield. 5 king-ranked realm martial artists. No matter how he thought about it, he would definitely die. As an invincible martial artist who had cultivated to his level, he naturally understood that it was impossible for there to be any unforeseen signs of danger. If there were any signs of uneasiness, it meant that he had missed something. Hence, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen. He had asked Yi Shiwen to be his helper. He had thought that 2 king-ranked martial artists would be enough. Who would have thought that their opponents would have 5 king-ranked martial artists? The 2 of them had fallen into the enemy's trap. Someone had tipped them off. Thus, he could only watch as Yi Shiwen fell into the attacks of the 4 king-ranked martial artists. Yi Shiwen, however, did not care. Although he had just broken through, he had accumulated a lot of experience. If not, he would not have been able to kill those demons. So there are so many king-ranked martial artists here today. No wonder you all feel that you can defeat me. However, this is also a good thing. I will use you all to test my limits, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Using us to test your limits? Young one, you are too arrogant. The Heaven Race Elder suddenly shouted. Even if you are also a king-ranked martial artist, you are only one person. How can you be compared to us? What's the point of talking to him? Just kill him. If we kill this human prodigy, we can delay the rise of the human race by 100,000 years. The Battle King roared as the war chariot under his feet had already reached Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen raised his hand and suddenly punched his chariot. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded out as the war chariot's spirit screamed. It had to be known that in the past it had been the one to send people flying, but now it had been forced to this point. Yi Shiwen took a step forward after forcibly stopping the Battle King's chariot. He only took one step, but he penetrated through the layers of space that the Battle King had used to protect himself. He arrived in front of the Battle King's main body, and bombarded it with a punch. The fist force turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation, which formed a gigantic wheel that shattered everything in its path. In fact, one could even see a terrifying power being generated with the naked eye as it blasted out toward the Battle King. The Battle King was startled. He hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen's counterattack would be so ferocious. That terrifying aura had almost suffocated him. At this moment, Jiang Yi finally reacted. He was incomparably furious. Someone actually dared to treat him like this. This was practically trampling on his dignity as a king-ranked martial artist. At once, all the life essence in his body was burning, and his blood was tearing the heavens apart. Heaven-piercing spear! He shouted, and a spear appeared in his hand. It carried a blood-red aura, and it tore through the void as if it wanted to bury the entire universe into the endless void. At the crucial moment, after using his war chariot to block the most dangerous attack for him, his counterattack followed like a shadow. It could be said that he had already grasped all the opportunities to shatter everything in an instant, and it was about to pierce through Yi Shiwen. Bang! The heaven-piercing spear directly stopped in front of Yi Shiwen. It was actually the 10,000 method roulette that had completely blocked the heaven-piercing spear. This was undoubtedly the highest form of irony. The 10,000 method roulette that had fought for the heavenly clan in the past and made great contributions had now become Yi Shiwen's protective talisman. At the instant of the collision, the 10,000 method roulette directly transformed into countless gods, and each god was evolving a supreme holy technique. Then, these god-level ancient techniques condensed and formed a terrifying attack that swept out in an instant. Boom! The War King was swept away, and half of his body was directly swept away. It instantly collapsed, and golden blood splattered out. The terrifying might of the 10,000 method roulette could already be seen at this moment. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities, and its power was boundless. Otherwise, the 10,000 method king wouldn't have been able to rely on the 10,000 method roulette to be invincible in the past. Even the sky was collapsing with a rumbling sound. Countless experts of the Tian clan cried out in alarm. In front of everyone's eyes, half of the War King's body was actually blown up. The sound that was emitted was like a devil's voice. It was unbearable. Swish! While everyone was still immersed in shock, a figure appeared beside Yi Shiwen. The power of origin erupted, and the void shook violently. Then, it began to collapse crazily. This was the most terrifying attack method of the space law. As long as one was still in this space, it would be impossible for any living creature to survive if this space collapsed. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. At the critical moment, when Yi Shiwen was planning to continue attacking, the Void King took the initiative to attack first. Yi Shiwen clearly felt that it wasn't only the main space that had been sealed. Even the other spaces had been sealed. They had collapsed under the influence of a dreadful force. This was obviously done to block his escape route so that he wouldn't have the slightest opportunity to escape. A power that could shatter the void transformed into a law that tore at his body. It seemed as if it wanted to tear his body apart. However, Yi Shiwen didn't move. His golden body bloomed with blazing light, and he was like a great emperor walking in the human world. The power of the space collapse couldn't do anything to him. Yi Shiwen sneered. If his gilded tyrant form could be torn apart so easily, then he would have been dead for countless years. Swish! With a sharp sound, the stone sword suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. He swung the sword, and the sword light turned into stone energy, petrifying everything. The Void King suddenly turned pale with fright. Compared to the legendary stone sword, Yi Shiwen's stone sword was stronger. Perhaps it should be said that he exerted a more tyrannical power. The ordinary stone sword emitted stone energy that could petrify a star. This kind of power was already very amazing, but Yi Shiwen seemed to have exerted the stone sword to another extreme realm. Not to mention the whole planet, even the plane itself and the power of space itself would be frozen by his stone energy. This was the most terrifying thing about him. He retreated all the way and constantly released the space law to resist, but he found that it was constantly eroded by the stone energy. He couldn't believe it. In fact, the space law was almost one of the most terrifying laws. It was only under the most mysterious time law. Time plus space was the core and foundation of the entire universe. But now he discovered that, if the stone law could be exerted to the peak, it could also exert such amazing power. In comparison, Wu Zimo and others were not his opponent at all. They were not on the same level at all. Some inconspicuous nomological laws were able to display shocking power in the hands of some top almighty beings. Yi Shiwen undoubtedly had such a means. Kid, don't be too arrogant. Feather King attacked at the right time. The saber light was like a river of stars, slashing down from the sky. The aura of destruction spread from the saber light, as if an invincible person was hiding in the long saber. waiting to be resurrected. It released blazing light and all kinds of terrifying aura. "Mind your own business. Don't worry, it's your turn soon," Yi Shiwen sneered. He flipped his palm, and a mirror immediately appeared in front of him. Then, a shocking blood-red light burst out of it and blocked the long blade. Clang! The saber light ruthlessly slashed at the Tianyuan mirror, but it only created waves of fluctuations. It couldn't break the Tianyuan mirror's defense at all. There was no doubt that it was another extremely terrifying top-grade divine tool. The kings were a little depressed. Yi Shiwen had too many treasures on him, and every one of them was extremely powerful. More importantly, there was the 10,000 spell roulette, a legendary divine tool that should have been the pride of the celestial race. But in the end, it became the root of their advancement. Boom! The blood light on the Tianyuan mirror exploded, forming a blood pillar that shot towards Feather King. Feather King retreated again and again, not daring to face it head-on. On the other side, Yi Shiwen was aggressive. He directly rushed to the side of the Void King and slashed down with his sword. Puff! The Void King was slashed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body was sent flying. Although he was known as the Void King and had an unreachable understanding of the way of space, he was able to escape at the speed of tearing space. But when the space was frozen, his speed was not worth mentioning. He couldn't escape Yi Shiwen's attack at all. "Kill, let's join hands and kill him. We can't let him continue to grow." The celestial race old man quickly shouted. When the other two heard this, they quickly attacked at the same time. The three of them formed a joint force. At this time, they could also see that one of them was not Yi Shiwen's opponent. It would take 3 or even 4 of them to defeat Yi Shiwen. Even if it was dishonorable, they had no other choice. One could imagine how ferocious the attack of the 3 kings was. The void instantly collapsed and turned into chaos. It was as if they had returned to the time when the world was created, and the earth, water, fire, and wind were reborn. Then, all kinds of laws evolved again. Even if an extremely powerful and unprepared person was hit by this attack, he would still be in a situation where he would die. Facing these attacks, Yi Shiwen's body shook, and his body shone with golden light. He was like a Buddha, but also like a deity chanting sutras. Then, he slashed with his sword. The Avicii sword appeared. Boom! The Avicii sword's blood-red sword light swept everything, annihilating everything. Puff, puff, puff! The 3 kings spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying. Chapter 2668. Kill him! The roars of these kings who were sent flying reverberated throughout the entire universe. They were sent flying with just one strike. The power of the Avicii sword was evident. How can he be so powerful? I don't believe it. Even a true king-ranked expert can't be so powerful. Fight it out with him. It doesn't matter how powerful he is. We have so many of us. The 4 powerful kings' eyes were bloodshot. So many of them had joined hands to set up an inescapable net. In the end, they couldn't even defeat Yi Shiwen alone. This was not the result they wanted. The old man from the heavenly tribe spat out a mouthful of essence chi, which instantly transformed into a huge ship that traversed the universe. It directly crossed the entire universe and crashed into Yi Shiwen. The feathers on Feather King's body instantly exploded and turned into a long saber. It cut the stars in the universe in half. He used all his strength to fight and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. The war chariot under the Battle King's feet rushed forward crazily, turning the world under his feet into one battlefield after another. Countless battlefield spirits appeared on the battlefield. On the other hand, the Void King took out a talisman. The talisman was engraved with terrifying runes that no one could understand. There seemed to be a powerful force covering it. It was an extremely ancient rune. It was a talisman left behind by a legendary imperial emperor. This rune was a Tao rune created by that Imperial Emperor. If one could decipher it, they would be able to comprehend the endless secret techniques left behind by that Imperial Emperor. Yi Shiwen stood tall in the void. They were already very far away from the place where the battle was taking place on the other side. 5 tyrannical king-level experts had erupted their fighting strength at the same time. One didn't even need to think about it to know how dreadful it would be. Neither side was willing to display their skills on the battlefield because there would always be people on their side. He looked coldly at the attacks coming towards him. Tens of thousands of Dharma roulette continued to rotate above his head. Countless spells burst out from the rotation. The aura became stronger and more terrifying. At this moment, all the attacks had already rushed towards him. Rumble. This time, none of the kings held back. They knew very well how terrifying this young man was. They might not be his match even if they used all their strength, let alone being merciful. It was simply terrifying. All the attacks landed on the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Facing the crazy attacks of 4 king-ranked experts, even the 10,000 Dharma roulette trembled a little. However, even more tyrannical spells burst out from the 10,000 Dharma roulette. All the attacks and spells were restrained. The true power of the 10,000 Dharma roulette was unleashed. Continue attacking. I don't believe that he can hold on for long, the Tian clan old man said somewhat crazily. At this moment, they had already been forced into a dead end by Yi Shiwen. They had no choice but to defeat Yi Shiwen. All the attacks were still going on, but Yi Shiwen acted as if he didn't see it and remained indifferent, letting these celestial race experts attack the 10,000 method roulette. Ah! An extremely miserable scream came from the 10,000 spell roulette, and then a huge shadow jumped out of it, trying to escape into the distance. However, Yi Shiwen finally made his move at this time. A big hand suddenly grabbed out, and this virtual shadow was caught alive and destroyed. What is this? That's the 10,000 Dharma roulette's tool spirit. At this time, the 4 experts realized what was going on. They had actually made a wedding dress for Yi Shiwen. They could already be considered as the group of people who stood at the pinnacle of the universe. There was nothing they had not seen before. Now that they saw this, how could they not be able to tell? Yi Shiwen clearly borrowed their power to force out the 10,000 Dharma roulette's tool spirit and then killed it. This way, there wouldn't be any obstacles for Yi Shiwen to completely control the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Thinking that they had become tailors and made a wedding dress for someone else, the 4 of them felt like vomiting blood. Yi Shiwen smiled. Their guess was right. In fact, this was the truth. The 10,000 Dharma roulette had always been hiding a bit of tool spirit. It was just that his cultivation wasn't high enough in the past, so he didn't discover it. Hence, it had always been a problem for him to control the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Now, with the help of a few king-ranked experts, it was forced out and killed in one fell swoop. Now, it's time for you to die. Yi Shiwen sneered. The 10,000 Dharma roulette was now completely under his control. He took a step forward and directly rushed towards the Heavenly Tribe's old man. The Heavenly Tribe's old man almost immediately felt the terrifying aura of the 10,000 Dharma roulette. He already remembered many legends about the 10,000 Dharma roulette. His eyes turned crimson. He was going all out. There was no other way but to fight now. An incomparably huge sea of bitterness instantly appeared around him. The entire sea of bitterness was boundless, and the raging waves were tens of thousands of zhang high. It was enough to completely obliterate everything. And in this sea of bitterness, he piloted a huge ship and rampaged. But Yi Shiwen was expressionless. Under his control, the 10,000 Dharma roulette flew out, and a torrent of thousands of spells condensed and bombarded. The 2 terrifying attacks collided, creating an eternal light. Although the giant ship of bitterness was tyrannical, it wasn't as tyrannical as the 10,000 Dharma roulette. countless spells restrained the giant ship of bitterness counterattack. Boom! The spell torrent completely submerged the heavenly tribe's old man. More than half of his body was completely smashed by the spell torrent. He struggled to escape into the distance, but how could Yi Shiwen give him another chance? The Avicii sword instantly shot out, and a sword light tore through the sky. Ah! With a scream, the heavenly tribe's old man was instantly killed. A king-ranked expert's flesh and blood was completely swallowed by the demon-summoning banner. Yi Shiwen's ferocity made the other heavenly tribe's experts want to retreat. This kid is so ferocious. Are we going to let him grow and become a huge threat to our tribe? At that moment, King Feather roared, and the countless feathers on his body fluttered. He rushed to Yi Shiwen's back and slashed down with his saber. His opportunity was very accurate. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that Yi Shiwen was out of breath after killing the heavenly tribe's old man. He wanted to severely injure Yi Shiwen at this time. Boom! This saber slashed directly into Yi Shiwen's body, and he finally found an excellent opportunity. However, only a faint white mark appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. It couldn't even break his skin, let alone injure him. Impossible. Even if a king-ranked expert was hit by my saber, he would still die. You can't be an exception. King Feather suddenly turned pale with fright. He did not expect that his attack could not even break through Yi Shiwen's defenses. If I had not broken through yet, this saber might have taken my life. However, I am still far from it. Yi Shiwen shouted as he took a step forward. The sword and the stone suddenly appeared in his hand, and he slashed down. King Feather only had time to use the wings on his back to cover his entire body. However, before he could react, Yi Shiwen's sword had already struck him. Feather King's entire body began to disintegrate. His two wings disintegrated in a split second, revealing his true body. Yi Shiwen's sword momentum didn't reduce in the slightest, and directly chopped off his head. Golden blood spurted everywhere. King Feather struggled to escape. Although his head had been cut off, to a king-ranked expert, this was not considered fatal. Yi Shiwen's sword did not manage to destroy his primordial spirit. Every cell in his body could be reborn into a complete body. It was very difficult to kill him. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him any chance to escape? He used the Avicii sword and slashed King Feather's body into two. King Feather's body was instantly destroyed, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. The Avicii sword was indeed very powerful. Even a king-ranked expert's primordial spirit was destroyed after being struck by this sword. This was something that Jiang Yi could not do even with the sword in the stone. He had to expend a lot of energy to destroy King Feather's primordial spirit. However, with the Avicii sword, just the Avicii sword's ferocious aura alone was enough to kill a king-ranked expert. Even a king-ranked expert would not be able to escape death. At this moment, the tides of the battle had turned. The Alliance Army's morale was greatly boosted. This was a miracle. They had thought that they had no chance of survival. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would be so powerful? Against 4 king-ranked experts, he had actually killed 2 of them. This kind of strength was enough to shock the heavens and earth. Let's go. At this moment, the Battle King and the Void King did not have any intention to fight anymore. They were almost scared to death by Yi Shiwen. It was not that they had never seen fierce king-ranked experts before. However, they had never seen such a fierce Sage Realm martial artist. If they allowed him to ascend to the king-ranked realm, that would be terrible. Although they still had such worries in their hearts, it was more important for them to escape now. As for Yi Shiwen, he would naturally alert even more powerful heavenly race experts to deal with him. The 2 of them were shocked and wanted to escape. As for the other heavenly race members, they could not be bothered with them anymore. Trying to escape? Set up the formation! Yi Shiwen shouted. Suddenly, a strong aura appeared around them. A few of them were also king-ranked experts. Although they could feel that they were much weaker than the two of them, with so many king-ranked experts appearing at this moment, the two of them almost lost all hope. The entire formation suddenly turned into stars. Countless starlight shone down from the skies far away. The entire formation began to move slowly, looking extremely majestic. This was the heavenly cycle star formation that had once shocked the world in the ancient heavenly court. Chapter 2669. This array was created by 998 kings. Its power was unparalleled. It was said that it could even resist the attacks of thearchs. The heavenly cycle star array that Yi Shiwen had created was definitely not comparable to the legendary heavenly cycle star array that could resist thearchs. However, it was more than enough to trap two king-ranked realm formidable martial artists. However, this was also a method that Yi Shiwen had just comprehended. He was able to control the demon kings to create the heavenly cycle star array. Countless power of the stars turned into beams of starlight that struck down. This was using the power of the entire universe. Even thearchs could be restrained, much less king-ranked realm formidable martial artists. When they were fighting just now, Yi Shiwen had already asked the demon kings to arrange this heavenly cycle star formation. At that time, the battle was in full swing, so they did not realize that these demon kings had already arranged this heavenly cycle star formation unknowingly. The battle monarch and the void monarch kept dodging, but the starlight in the sky was getting stronger and stronger. The power of the stars was getting denser and denser. It kept striking their bodies. Perhaps it was just one or two, and it was not enough to shake their defenses. However, when millions of starlight struck at the same time, it was like a starry sky falling. The battle monarch and the void monarch tried to break through the heavenly cycle star array. They could only defend where they were. The battle monarch roared, "Kill the world!" At that moment, he was firmly in the center of the heavenly cycle star array. It was as if he had become one with the entire universe. He wanted to fight with the heavenly cycle star array for control of heaven and earth. He was actually going to counterattack. He stabbed his spear at Yi Shiwen, who was chasing behind him. This spear seemed like it was going to pierce through the sky. The sun, moon, and stars, heaven and earth reversed. Yi Shiwen did not dodge. Instead, he punched forward. 6 paths of reincarnation. Everything has to enter reincarnation. You guys go in too. The fist and the battle spear collided violently. Suddenly, heaven and earth shook violently. A terrifying force exploded from the collision. Bang! The battle spear in the battle monarch's hand was sent flying. His entire arm was suddenly turned into dust. There was a look of horror on his face, because Yi Shiwen had actually chased after him and charged straight into the heavenly cycle star formation. Yi Shiwen's fist blasted down directly towards his chest. At this moment, the Void King finally reacted. He slashed out endless space power in an attempt to rescue Yi Shiwen from Yi Shiwen's hands. It would be easy as long as Yi Shiwen was fine. Otherwise, if he was the only king left, it would be equivalent to seeking his own death. Bang! His attacks were completely blocked by the 10,000 spell roulette, and all of them were thoroughly dissolved and turned into nothingness. On the other side, Yi Shiwen's attack had already arrived. A blood light leaped out of his body. It was the Tianyuan mirror that had smashed down and directly bombarded the Battle King. Immediately, cracks appeared all over the War King's body. It shattered inch by inch as he was struck by a terrifying power. There was also a blood-red power wreaking havoc within him, not giving him a chance to recover. Such a situation made the Void King's scalp numb. He frantically tore the space apart and wanted to escape from this place. At this moment, he had no intention of assisting the Battle King at all. Sure enough, when he turned around, he saw Yi Shiwen slashing down with the Avicii sword in his hand. The Avicii sword slashed down thousands of miles of sword light. It was like a blood-red galaxy that slashed down and ruthlessly landed on the Battle King's body. The Battle King's divine monarch body could not withstand such a crazy attack. It directly collapsed and was swallowed by the demon-calling banner. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's gaze finally turned to the Void King, and he fiercely pounced over. The Void King immediately stopped escaping. It was impossible to break the heavenly cycle star formation in a short period of time. The only way now was to get rid of the culprit, Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to escape. The Void King spat out a mouthful of spirit energy, which directly turned into a character in the sky. The characters on this character were extremely simple and unadorned. It was an ancient character that Yi Shiwen had never seen before. Emptiness. The Void King's emptiness was the origin of all the techniques and martial arts in his life. He accidentally obtained this emptiness when he was young. He used this emptiness to the extreme, and his cultivation soared crazily all the way. Only then did he finally achieve the illustrious name of the Void King. This was his innate technique. If he wasn't forced into a dead end, he would never use such a technique, because if he was injured, it would truly injure the source of his life. However, there was no other way at this time. Yi Shiwen was too fierce, and he had no other means to deal with him. Facing this emptiness, Yi Shiwen's face did not have the slightest look of fear. On the contrary, there was a hint of joy on his face. Just nice. I want this emptiness! Exclamation point. Yi Shiwen knew that the emptiness in the emptiness meant space. It was precisely because of this that he had to have it. One must know that his current demon wings had already been cultivated to the peak of the third layer, light wings. However, he was still one step away from truly transforming into the ultimate space wings. He knew that he was lacking in the understanding of space. Although he had cultivated to this level and his understanding of space was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people, he was still somewhat lacking if he wanted to condense the space wings. However, if he had the help of this emptiness, his space wings could almost be said to be completed immediately. An incomparably huge thunder word appeared on his body, forming an indomitable thunder giant. This was the thunder word that he obtained back then. It collided with this emptiness word in the universe. This was the collision of two terrifying understandings. At this time, the two were competing in the source. A terrifying mushroom cloud spread out from the collision of the two forces. Puff! The Void King spouted a mouthful of blood. Golden blood sprayed out and splattered everywhere. He retreated again and again. He suffered a great loss in such a collision of the source. He never expected that Yi Shiwen actually had such a method. He actually also had an original Taoist text. The power was probably not inferior to the emptiness word that he obtained. However, Yi Shiwen did not move at all, as if the attack just now did not cause any threat to him at all. He directly stretched out a big hand and suddenly grabbed towards that emptiness word. Then, he grabbed that emptiness word in his hand. The emptiness word tried to struggle, but it was useless. How is this possible? I don't know how much time and energy I spent to subdue this emptiness word back then. How can you grab it so quickly? Said the Void King in disbelief. Who do you think you are to be compared with me? Yi Shiwen sneered and did not say much. He just began to refine this emptiness word. Boom! This emptiness word suddenly exploded. The big hand that he was grabbing was blown into pieces. It turned out that the Void King had completely exploded the spirit that he entrusted in the emptiness word. He wanted to use this method to severely injure Yi Shiwen. Even if he could not obtain it, he could not let Yi Shiwen obtain it. Stupid, this method is completely useless against me. The smoke and dust dispersed, and Yi Shiwen's body appeared in front of everyone unscathed. Above his head, the Tianyuan mirror and the 10,000 spell roulette directly blocked all the aftermath of the explosion. However, they only shattered his big hand made of spirit energy. Swish! Without the spirit control of the Void King, that emptiness word regained its freedom. It wanted to escape, but it was useless. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed that emptiness word in his hand again. However, at this time, the Void King had no way to affect Yi Shiwen. At this time, he could not even take care of himself. Without the emptiness word as the original source, his strength had plummeted. It was not comparable to his previous strength at all. The heavenly cycle star formation continued to operate. Very quickly, the Void King screamed in pain as he was blasted into pieces. Countless heavenly cycle stars struck him. Even a king-ranked martial artist would not be able to withstand such an attack. Then, the heavenly cycle stars formation immediately disappeared. Many demon kings were satisfied. After devouring a lot of flesh and blood, they returned to the demon beckoning banner. Such a great heavenly cycle star formation was very powerful. However, its consumption was also frighteningly high. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to use it for a long time. Otherwise, he would go bankrupt even with his family's wealth. At this time, Yi Shiwen did not care so much. He began to refine that emptiness word talisman. He wanted to refine it into his body. At this time, that Tian clan beast king was shocked. How would he dare to stay? The other 4 helpers had died in Yi Shiwen's hands. How could he be a match for Yi Shiwen alone? However, the Lord of Flames would not give him such a chance. Originally, it was that Beast King who wanted to hold the Lord of Flames back. Now, the tables were turned. The Lord of Flames was holding the Beast King back. Now, the outcome was set. As long as Yi Shiwen refined that emptiness word talisman, he would be able to finish off this Beast King. At this time, the Alliance army seemed to have been injected with adrenaline. They were brave and silent. Seeing Yi Shiwen's godly prowess, even the God King whom they thought could not be defeated had died in his hands. What's more, Yi Shiwen had effortlessly killed the God King. It could be said that the biggest obstacle had been cleared. All that was left was to kill the enemies and earn military merit. On the other hand, the morale of the Tian clan's side had plummeted. They were fleeing madly. No one was willing to stay. Under such circumstances, the monkeys would scatter when the tree fell. Suddenly, a blinding light came from the universe. It was emitted from Yi Shiwen's body. His body had an additional indescribable aura. Chapter 2670. From Yi Shiwen's body, layers of invisible waves were emitted. The entire universe started to tremble violently. As if he was undergoing a sublimation, the pair of wings on Yi Shiwen's back gradually disappeared, as if they had been absorbed into space. Swish! In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared from everyone's sight. When he reappeared, he was already in front of that Beast King. Yi Shiwen had appeared too quickly. Or rather, it was too strange. That Beast King did not even sense any spatial fluctuations before he was already right in front of it. Yi Shiwen had not even made a move when a terrifying spatial power formed a crack in the void and slashed down. This Beast King did not even have time to react. Its entire body and the surrounding space were torn into pieces like a painting. Countless pieces of flesh and blood splattered everywhere as they tried to reform themselves in the sky. However, it was useless. Yi Shiwen immediately waved his demon summoning banner and opened his mouth wide as he swallowed this Beast King whole. Compared to when he was dealing with the other Beast Kings earlier, it was much easier. The Lord of Flames looked at Yi Shiwen with a complicated expression. It seemed as if it had not recovered from the shock. Junior brother Yi is stronger than before. This was the only thought left in the Lord of Flames' mind. With his cultivation level, he could easily tell that Yi Shiwen's entire body seemed to be transforming. When Yi Shiwen had rushed over earlier, even the Lord of Flames had not been able to react, much less the Beast King. Yi Shiwen's understanding of space had reached a whole new level. After these king-ranked martial artists had all been killed by Yi Shiwen, The remaining heavenly race martial artists were also defeated. They no longer had any intention of continuing the battle. Immediately they crumbled, especially since Yi Shiwen seemed to still be experimenting with his space wings. He charged at the front of the army. Countless resurrection arrays swept out energy torrents, but they were all absorbed by his body. There was not a single bit of energy spilling out. Everywhere Yi Shiwen passed, he kept flapping his space wings and slashing out with spatial power. The heavenly race survivors' line of defense started to crumble. One world after another was scorched by the flames of war. In the end, Yi Shiwen simply relied on the ability of the wings of space to directly jump into the stronghold of the Tian clan. The celestial race had been operating this stronghold for many years. They had left behind many divine materials. However, by the time Yi Shiwen arrived, most of the treasure house had been emptied. It seemed that they were planning to evacuate. Regardless of whether the ambush was a success or failure, this stronghold would definitely be exposed, and it would not be able to hold on for long. Therefore, the number of treasures that fell into Yi Shiwen's hands wasn't as many as he had imagined. However, he still made a fortune. What is this? Where does this world-breaking talisman lead to? Yi Shiwen discovered that the most valuable things in the entire treasury had already been moved away. Only this boundary-breaking talisman was slightly interesting after he had swept through the treasury once. This wasn't an ordinary boundary-breaking talisman. It was a directional boundary-breaking talisman. Could it be a boundary-breaking talisman that led to the other strongholds of the Tian clan? This kind of boundary-breaking talisman was very difficult to create. It was much more precious than a directional teleportation array. Furthermore, this boundary-breaking talisman was divided into two types, directional and non-directional. The non-directional boundary-breaking talisman was usually used to tear apart solid space and escape or chase after enemies. The directional boundary-breaking talisman was basically used for long-distance teleportation. Yi Shiwen kept the boundary-breaking talisman first. If he had the chance in the future, he would try to find out what kind of place it was. As all the king-ranked realm experts were killed by Yi Shiwen, the battle also came to an end. What was left was a one-sided massacre and a clean-up of the battlefield. Senior brother, since these people have been dealt with, I shall not stay any longer. I'm leaving first. The Lord of Flames quickly charged in. Yi Shiwen knew that he wouldn't be of much use. This was an unprecedented victory. It could be said that he had dealt a heavy blow to the arrogance of the Tian clan. He had gained a lot from this trip and didn't want to compete with the Lord of Flames for any credit. I have to thank Junior Brother for this matter. If you hadn't acted personally, I might have really died this time. The Lord of Flames said sincerely. Even now, he still had a lingering fear in his heart. It's nothing. Is there a need to say such things between brothers? However, this operation has actually been leaked. I think there might be a traitor within the army. No, I should say that there might even be traitors among the higher-ups. Yi Shiwen said. It was obvious that the other party had been prepared. It didn't seem like they had suddenly received the news just before the operation began. Instead, they must have known about this a long time ago. To be able to find out about this operation a long time ago, they were probably not ordinary people. Perhaps the higher-ups in the army or even the Alliance army had leaked the secret. I have to get to the bottom of this when I get back. It's really too dangerous. If we were to all die this time, we wouldn't be able to explain ourselves. The Lord of Flames' face was dark. This incident had taught him a very deep lesson. Everything here has been settled. There's no need to trouble Junior Brother. Junior Brother, you can go back first. Then, I shall take my leave. After Yi Shiwen finished speaking, his entire body slowly merged into the void. When he appeared again, he was already hundreds of thousands of miles away. He had gained a lot from this trip. In particular, the mastery of the wings of space had increased his strength by a lot. With just the wings of space alone, Yi Shiwen's strength was not to be underestimated. The wings of demon wasn't just a movement technique. At the same time, it was also a martial art that had both offensive and defensive capabilities. It was very powerful. Suddenly, his eyelids twitched violently. An extremely bad feeling came from his heart. He abruptly stopped in his tracks. Right in front of him, the space seemed to have been sliced apart by something sharp. It was extremely terrifying, and countless strands of primordial chaos poured out from within. There was a great master ambushing him. Yi Shiwen's heart suddenly jumped. He immediately understood that there was a great master ambushing him here. The surrounding environment suddenly changed. It became an endless demon world. It was forcefully transformed. "Who is ambushing me here?" Yi Shiwen shouted. At the same time, his divine senses probed out, trying to find the ambusher. He had an extreme uneasiness in his heart. Although the ambusher didn't show up, it gave him a great sense of oppression. It was obvious that it wasn't an ordinary king. Rip! The entire space was directly torn apart. A terrifying power crazily rushed down, grabbing towards Yi Shiwen. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen waved the wings of space behind him at the critical moment. He dodged this fatal blow. However, such attacks were continuous. There was no time to stop. There was a king of the demon race involved. However, even Yi Shiwen couldn't detect anything. The entire formation isolated all auras. He could only determine a little bit of things. This king of the demon race was much stronger than the kings that Yi Shiwen had encountered before. Moreover, he had ambushed Yi Shiwen here. That was why he was in such a difficult situation. Countless thoughts flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind. To be able to appear here at this time and know that he was going back, it must be the higher-ups of the Alliance army. Otherwise, no one else could know his whereabouts. He was even more convinced that there was a traitor. He was afraid that this traitor's position in the Alliance army was not low. However, from the attributes of the martial arts, he could only determine that it was a king of the demon race. He couldn't sense anything else. "No, I'm really going to be exhausted to death like this." Yi Shiwen used all his means. Only the Avicii sword could pose a slight threat to the formation. However, it couldn't completely break the formation. Moreover, there was a terrifying king of the demon race waiting behind the formation. If not for this array formation, Jiang Yi was confident that he could escape even if a peak-stage king-ranked King Realm martial artist surrounded him with his wings of space. However, this array formation isolated the entire space. Even Jiang Yi's wings of space could not tear it apart. Someone was constantly reinforcing the space around it. Yi Shiwen immediately gritted his teeth. He couldn't fight with the opponent. Otherwise, he would fall into the opponent's trap. The formation was getting smaller and smaller. It was like the rope around his neck was getting tighter and tighter. He flipped his palm, and the boundary-breaking talisman appeared. It was the boundary-breaking talisman that he obtained from the Tian clan's treasure house. "It's all up to you now." Yi Shiwen spread his spiritual power into the boundary-breaking talisman. Immediately, the boundary-breaking talisman bloomed with dazzling light. A space channel that was as tall as a person appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen immediately stepped out and rushed into the space channel without hesitation. What? Outside the formation, a group of black shadows couldn't help but change his expression when he saw this scene. He had used all his means and set up layers of traps. In the end, he still managed to escape. How could he be happy about this? At this time, Yi Shiwen rushed into the space channel. He only felt that the surrounding space was shaking violently. When he reacted again, he had already appeared in another world. A strong spiritual energy came to his face. Looking around, there was a beautiful scenery. It was a blessed land. Where the hell is this world? Why is there such a strong spiritual energy? Yi Shiwen was a little hesitant. This was a very large world, but the spiritual energy was frighteningly abundant. It wasn't worse than many caves and blessed lands. He opened the eyes of redemption and looked into the distance. In an instant, he could see millions of miles away. He could vaguely see the outline of a huge city appearing in front of him. Chapter 26:71. Even though Yi Shiwen was far away, he could still see an incomparably huge city wall appearing in front of him. Where is this place? Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He had chosen to activate the boundary-breaking talisman in order to avoid the pursuit of the powerful king previously. However, it was obvious that he had transmigrated to a place that he had never been to before. He was worried about such a situation before, so he planned to study it carefully. As a result, he was directly transported here before he could study it. Fortunately, it was not an extremely dangerous environment. No matter what, let's take a look first and figure out what this place is, Yi Shiwen said as he rushed forward. With Yi Shiwen's speed, it only took a moment for him to approach this big city. The entire city wall was incomparably huge. It was unknown how many miles long it was. It was at least thousands of feet high, directly towering into the clouds. The clouds could only linger on the city wall. One could imagine how huge it was. Yi Shiwen had just approached it when he discovered that he was being rejected. A kind of terrifying power of the mortal world swept out and crushed his body. This is the aura of the Sky Clan. Yi Shiwen immediately felt that this power of the mortal world was mixed with the aura of the Sky Clan. That kind of aura was incompatible with the existence of the 10,000 races in the universe. It was completely like a creature from another world. There had always been a lot of rumors about the Sky Clan. Some rumors said that the Sky Clan was a creature that crossed over from another chaotic universe. Some people also said that the Sky Clan was actually a remnant of the previous universe civilization, witnessing the destruction and rebirth of the universe. In short, the Sky Clan was a completely different kind of creature from the current 10,000 races in the universe. Unless there was a disguise, as long as one approached, one could clearly feel the difference. He immediately thought that this world was probably an unknown world occupied by the remnants of the Sky Clan. The boundary-breaking talisman was simply specially prepared to travel to this world. At this time, he completely understood that this was probably an unknown world occupied by the remnants of the Sky Clan. The boundary-breaking talisman was simply specially prepared to travel to this world. At this time, he completely understood that this was the purpose of the boundary-breaking talisman. It was to be able to locate here. Sure enough, it was a beautiful cultivation paradise. However, for such a paradise to remain undiscovered for such a long time, the celestial race had hidden themselves too deeply. Fortunately, he had discovered it. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take for it to be discovered? After a slight pause, Yi Shiwen operated the ruler's sword technique, and instantly erupted with the aura of the heaven race. The power of the mortal world didn't reject him, and Yi Shiwen was able to smoothly enter the city. At a glance, he could see the experts of the Tian clan everywhere. The Tian clan was worthy of being called a race blessed by the heavens. Almost everyone he saw was at least at the profound realm or above. With the situation of the Tian clan, as long as one reached adulthood, it seemed that there was no realm below the profound realm. One could see Tian clan experts with completely different faces everywhere. This was similar to the 10,000 worlds in the universe, a race that always looked similar but different. Some were humanoid, some were beast-shaped, some were similar to the human clan leader, and some were similar to the demon clan leader. There were all kinds of them. This was also one of the sources of many rumors about the Tian clan. Many people suspected that they were actually not the same race, but only stayed here for some reason. Because apart from having a similar aura, it was impossible to tell that they were of the same race from their appearance. This completely subverted everyone's understanding. Therefore, Yi Shiwen's human appearance was not eye-catching at all in the city. In fact, this appearance was the most common. The city was bustling with activity. Yi Shiwen walked all the way. Even in the base camp of the Tian clan, with his strength, he was above most of the Tian clan. There was no pressure at all. He came to a square, and suddenly there was a noise. "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" A noise came from the crowd, and a few strong men squeezed out and came to the bulletin board in the square. "What is this?" Many people looked over. "It's the announcement of the 9th prince. It seems that he wants to recruit experts from our city to go to the resting place of the ancestors." Someone read it out. Yi Shiwen also looked over. With his cultivation, it was not difficult for him to understand the language of the Tian clan. He had already completely comprehended it a long time ago. It can't be, the resting place of the ancestors has opened again? Isn't the next time supposed to be 10,000 years later? It's all because of the rebels outside. Now the rebels seem to know that we have found the opportunity to become emperors, and they are frantically sweeping all of our strongholds outside. The world is going to be chaotic. In order to improve the strength of our clan, the elders of each clan have decided to open the resting place of the ancestors in advance, and let the elite geniuses of our clan enter to increase their strength. So that's how it is. But the 9th prince has already entered the peak of the sage realm. He is indeed qualified to be called an elite genius. I heard that the 9th prince is talented and has the talent to become a great emperor. Although the 9th prince is not bad, the other princes are also talented and bold. They are not bad at all. Everyone was talking. "Excuse me, brother. May I ask where the resting place of the ancestors is?" Yi Shiwen asked a person next to him. This person looked at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at a country bumpkin, and then said, "Don't tell me you just came in from another stronghold." Yes. Yi Shiwen took the opportunity to admit it. That's right. The other strongholds are just strongholds. They can't be compared to us. Let me tell you, the resting place of the ancestors is the resting place of many of our ancestors. Among them is even the resting place of the emperor of our clan. This person explained to Yi Shiwen, speaking of which, this was originally a battlefield. Countless senior experts of our clan have fallen there. Many of our clan's young geniuses have entered long ago and obtained a lot of benefits. The 9th prince must have entered with the intention of breaking through to the king realm in one go. Now that the world is so chaotic, whether or not our clan can rule the world again depends on this. Yi Shiwen suddenly had a plan. It turned out that the resting place of the ancestors was such a place. Although it was dangerous, there must be many fortuitous encounters. As an outsider, it would be very difficult for him to enter. But now, with the opportunity of the 9th prince, it was completely different. Thinking of this, he went to the location of the 9th prince's residence that the person had mentioned. At this time, he finally understood the specific situation of the Sky Clan. There were very few records of the specific situation of the Sky Clan even in the Hidden Valley. It turned out that the Celestial Clan was not a monolithic block, but was divided into 10 great dynasties, and he was now in the Tianqi dynasty of the 10 great dynasties. This dynasty was said to be extremely ancient, and it could even be traced back to the first war against the heavens. Later on, although most of the Celestial Clan was sealed in a different space, there were still many people left, and a part of them formed the Tianqi dynasty. It was said that the Heaven Awakened dynasty also had the bloodline of a supreme emperor in the Tian clan, the Heaven Awakened Emperor. Currently, the one in charge of the Heaven Awakened dynasty was one of the few experts in the Tian clan, the Heaven Awakened Monarch. The 9th prince was one of the thousands of sons of the Tianqi king. Among the thousands of sons of the Tianqi king, at least more than half of them had cultivated to the god realm. Among them, the 9th prince and a few other princes were even more outstanding. They were ambitious to successfully seize the throne. Now, it was actually a battle to seize the throne. After digesting all of this, Yi Shiwen slightly curled his lips. Although the celestial race was known as a transcendent race, in fact, it was no different from the human race and other races. There was also infighting and competition for the throne. They were not as noble as they claimed to be. However, this was also a good opportunity for him to successfully participate in it. He thought about it. If he wanted to leave here, whether it was to send a message to the outside world or to leave here, he had to go through the high-level route. Although there were many experts in the Sky Clan, and the probability of being discovered was high, Yi Shiwen was confident that with his current strength, as long as he was careful, there should not be a problem. In the worst case, he could rely on the space wings to smoothly escape. As the saying goes, advance and retreat freely, so he did not have to worry about this. It didn't take long for him to arrive outside the Ninth Prince's mansion. The entire mansion was endless and occupied a vast area. It was just like a small city, heavily guarded. "Stop, what the hell are you doing?" Yi Shiwen had just entered when he was stopped by two Sky Clan guards. "I'm here to answer the Ninth Prince's summon," Yi Shiwen said. The way the two looked at Yi Shiwen immediately changed. The Ninth Prince had posted the imperial list. During this time, many strange people and strange things had come to the Sky Clan. No matter who they were, without exception, they were all powerhouses from all sides. The masters of the entire city wanted to try their luck. They were not people that these insignificant guards could afford to offend. "So that's how it is. Young master, please come inside." The guards quickly invited Yi Shiwen in. Soon, someone came out and led Yi Shiwen into a side courtyard. Although it was called a side courtyard, it was actually quite luxurious. At this time, there were already many people waiting in the courtyard. Every one of them exuded an extremely dangerous aura, completely giving off an aura that prevented strangers from entering. Although it is said that the Ninth Prince is recruiting heroes from all over the world, I'm afraid that not everyone can enter as they please. You're just a small sage late stage. What makes you think you can do it? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.